Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Most of the people I care for are practically immortal themselves. Hinata's face flushed. Adorable? I ignored her words and gestured for her to follow me. I already had admin access to the dungeon, and with my newfound authority over Small World, I was able to manipulate Ranmary's labyrinth in ways I was incapable of before. I snapped my finger, splitting Veldora's floor in half, giving us an isolated floor to have our fun in. I turned around to face Hinata. The damage should be contained, so feel free to go all out. I'm curious to see what you have learned. Hinata nodded before taking out a unique grade rapier from her spatial storage. Ah, right, I haven't given her the bracelet yet. The rapier she had wasn't bad and had the potential to grow, but it would take ages for it to ever become something that would actually benefit Hinata. Not to mention that it would eventually shatter against my own blade. You won't be using that, I said as I swapped space around a bit, causing the rapier to appear in my hand. Hinata glared. I do need a weapon if I am to face you, Felix. For all my growth, I still know I must go all out in a fight between us. PFFT, haha. What are you laughing at? Hinata questioned. I shook my head. Nothing. I guess I'll let her see for herself if she will be able to reach me with her blade. For all her growth, I still do not believe Hinata is capable of harming me. I quite literally held her soul in the palm of my hands. I had a very good idea of what she was capable of, but I won't underestimate her. She may have some trump card I don't know about. As for your weapon, here, I said as I held my palm out, a pitch-black bracelet appeared. With this, Hinata will make for a significant threat. She has usurper, mathematician, and some top-tier god-grade equipment. Hinata's eyes widened. That's. I nodded. This is a perfect replica of your old equipment. It's all at the god grade as well, so it won't hold you back, and since it was yours, it should recognize you as its master. Brahma, Lord of Creation, could do some wondrous things. Hinata stared at me, an odd emotion in her eyes. I do not know what to say, Felix. I rolled my eyes. Then don't say anything, here, I said as I tossed her the bracelet. Hinata's eyes widened in alarm as she quickly caught the bracelet and latched it onto her wrist. Do not throw something so valuable, Felix. Yeah. Anyways, are we going to fight or not? Hinata looked at me with a smug smirk as her divine armaments enveloped her form. The divine armaments were quite powerful. They strengthened Hinata's EP significantly due to the amount of energy within it, and they also strengthened elemental magic. That's not even counting just how durable the armaments are. Hinata then held her hand out, a beautiful rapier with a pitch-black hilt and a shining silver blade. That rapier was something even I would be wary of in the right hands. She looked down at the rapier with a fond smile. It feels the same. Chloe already has Moon Mistress, so you will be Divine Moonlight, Hinata declared. It seems that it accepted you as its master fairly quickly. That's good. I don't want to hear you making excuses about how your equipment wasn't at its full potential. Hinata huffed. I would not do such a dishonorable thing to you, Felix. Pausing for a few moments before adding. Probably. I held in my laugh at Hinata's words. It seems you've acquired a sense of humor during your journey. At least you're a hag with a sense of humor and not just a plain old hag. Hinata gritted her teeth as her hero's haki began leaking from her in waves. I am not a hag. I could feel the effects of Hinata's hero's haki weighing down on me. It was attempting to subjugate me and bend me to Hinata's will. I scoffed and lightly released some of my aura to contest against her hero's haki, causing the pressure I felt earlier to fade away. I shrugged my shoulders. Whatever you say, but we can talk about your delusions later. Now I want to fight. I was rather eager to see how much stronger Hinata got. Hinata scoffed but nodded nonetheless. She then got in her stance and looked at me warily. You will not be using your blade? She asked in annoyance. I will. I was just trying to annoy you, I openly admitted as I held my hand out, Yamato materializing in my grip. Oh Thinus, don't assist me in this fight other than your analysis. I see. Do you wish for Hinata to have a chance at harming you? That's right, if you were to help me as my player too, there is no way Hinata will manage to even touch me. That is true, I would cover your back 100% and make sure no harm comes to you from any unexpected attacks. Very well then, I will only analyze Hinata's abilities in this fight, and should her swordsmanship be good enough I will incorporate elements of it into your own style, master. Though should a threat to your well-being appear I will take action. Sounds good. Since I wouldn't be relying on Othinus at all, that also included all of Othinus' predictive abilities that could calculate what my opponent would do ahead of time. I was going to be raw-dogging this fight, if you will. Hinata looked at my katana cautiously. It feels stronger than before. That's because it is. Yamato had a couple of million EP, and it was always getting stronger due to sucking up the energy in my infinity space. Let's see how much you have grown, Hinata. I said, a smile spreading across my face. Hinata nodded, determination lighting up her eyes. Before she could make the first move, I dashed forwards. The air around me shattered, causing a series of sonic booms to erupt behind me. I wasn't lying when I said I wanted to see how capable she was now. I appeared in front of her, my katana descending from above in a swift, deadly arc. Hinata's eyes widened slightly before she reacted, coating her rapier with a layer of fighting spirit and raising it defensively to meet my attack. My katana clanged against her rapier, sparks flying as the two blades collided. Hinata smirked confidently as she began to push me back. Don't get cocky, Hinata. I warned as I began using a little more of my strength. Ever since I had acquired the Star King factor, the Frost factor, and the Storm factor, I have not fought much using pure physical strength. In the first place, I didn't fight primarily with raw physical power at all, but in the past at least I had a good idea of just how physically strong I was. But with my new power-up I wasn't entirely certain just where my limits laid when it came to raw strength. I didn't want to accidentally use too much even if Hinata could probably handle it. My fight with Granoa wasn't very helpful in this regard since Granoa was damn durable, so I didn't have to hold back much of my physical strength, which while fun did not help me get my power under control. I had purposefully used less strength than normal in this fight so far before I would ramp it up as I got more used to my physical strength. Hinata gritted her teeth as I began to slowly push her back, her rapier straining against my own katana. Of course it wouldn't break. With each second that passed, I added a bit more power, testing her limits. Hinata eventually retreated by dashing backward, something I allowed her to do. She looked at me with a calculating look in her eyes. You have gotten stronger. I could not feel it before because you always conceal your aura, but it is far easier to see now. I nodded. I did get a bit of a power-up recently. I replied honestly. You had not even coated your blade in your aura, that was all physical strength and the power of your katana. She observed as she looked right at Yamato. That's right. Hinata sighed with a mix of frustration and resignation. Just when I felt I was beginning to catch up you got even further away. She whispered to herself. I didn't respond to her words. This was a mental barrier she would have to overcome on her own. She was always comparing her own power to me, to Luminous, to Rimuru, and that was holding her back. She shouldn't want to be as strong as Felix White. She should want to be the best Hinata Sakaguchi she can possibly be. I had my own style, and she had hers. My style consisted of cheating, while Hinata thrived on natural talent and unwavering determination. Though she also cheated a bit with Usurper, I was just the better cheater between us two. Once she breached her mental barrier, I had no doubt she would grow much stronger. Hinata looked back at me, determination shining in her violet eyes. Seeing that she had regained her composure, I took a defensive stance, ready to see how much her offense had improved. Hinata's hero's haki blazed around her rapier, and fighting spirit rampaged around her, reinforcing her capabilities. I could feel her unique skill, mathematician attempt to get a read on me. The waves that her skill released to analyze me simply didn't reach me due to Infinity's effects. Hinata didn't look disturbed whatsoever that her analysis was blocked. This wasn't the first time she had tried to do so after all. I'd give her something, she was damn persistent. I am still incapable of analyzing you. Hinata shook her head. Never mind, it does not matter how long it takes, but I will reach you. She promised. That's the spirit. As soon as I finished speaking, Hinata dashed forwards, leaving behind a sonic explosion that the dungeon absorbed. She seemed to be going for a jab, so I angled my sword to intercept her. The tip of her rapier met the flat of my katana, harmlessly bouncing off. I felt the effects of Usurper attempting to weaken my weapon, but with a flex of my aura, I easily mitigated it. It wasn't always able to weaken things. Originally it could only weaken some skills and arts if Hinata pushed it, but it seems she managed to evolve its capabilities in the past. Weakening my weapon was a pretty good tactic since she couldn't weaken me directly with Usurper. Hinata wasn't bothered by the failure and continued to strike at me with renewed ferocity. As I blocked her strikes, I spoke up. That was pretty good. Something like that would work on many people, perhaps even Luminous. I knew Hinata's original goal was to grow strong enough to slay Luminous if she turned out to be an enemy of humanity, and she was well on her way. Though I wouldn't let Hinata do such a thing if it came to that, but at this point that was practically impossible with their relationship. But not enough to affect you. Hinata gritted out as a wave of fire erupted from her blade. I lightly blew some air out of my mouth, disrupting the energy in the fire and causing it to fade into nothingness. Magic disruption was a rather neat ability that I enjoyed using from time to time, if only to flex. You'll need to try harder than that if you want to reach me, but you're making progress. Hinata ignored my words and began silently casting various spells. Within a millisecond multiple magic circles surrounded me. At least her casting time has improved. With thought acceleration her casting time was already damn fast, but it was even faster now. I looked around. There was fire, ice, water, and most of all, earth magic, the element said to be strongest against space. They were all basic elemental spells, but they could still be powerful in the right hands. I wasn't surprised that Hinata could expertly cast magic while she was dueling me with her rapier. I smirked as I felt Hinata begin to call on her holy magic. Using her holy magic and faith in Luminous as a crutch, she began to circulate spiritrons wildly around the spells she had cast. It seems she was still incapable of manipulating spiritrons on her own, but she had learned to manipulate them to a certain extent using faith as a crutch. It seems she was aiming to use spiritrons to breach through my infinity, not a bad plan, if infinity was still weak to spiritrons. Previously, she wouldn't have been able to manipulate spiritrons like this at all. Very impressive. A moment later, all the spells were released towards me. Their speeds were blinding and even my Demon Duke self would fail to keep track of the spells. I watched with a smirk as the spells immediately closed in on me, yet the closer they got, the slower they moved until in Hinata's perception it looked like her spells weren't even moving. She dashed backward, a curious and upset expression on her face. Hey, what a cute expression. I teased. My words broke Hinata out of whatever it was that she was thinking. She blushed crimson as she sputtered. Shut up. Now, can you tell me how your stupid barrier managed to block my spells? I remember Melt/broke through your infinity even if I didn't manage to harm you with it. I don't see any other barrier that is covering your infinity either. I had told Hinata about infinity's weakness when she had asked why her Melt/managed to breach through it when everything else she used had failed. I had no reason to really hide it, so I answered, infinity was just my first line of defense, it most certainly was not my last. Just like you are always growing stronger and improving yourself, I am doing the same. More like Othinus is doing the same, but Othinus' soul is inside my own, so we are basically the same person, so that counts. Probably. I do believe your logic was flawless, Master. If Amanas of all people is agreeing with me, then I must be right. TSK. Of course, after months of slacking you finally decide to improve yourself now. Hinata muttered. I looked at her offended. I haven't been slacking for months. Hinata looked at me suspiciously. I have not seen you practice your abilities once, and some of your subordinates go on about how you do not train due to your so-called overwhelming power being more than enough to cow your foes into submission. Damn it. Betrayed by my closest companions. I smirked as a fun idea came to mind. I dramatically held my left palm over my chest. Well, what can I say? After losing my precious student, I quickly went into a training frenzy. Hinata's eyes widened. Is that so? Very well then, I can forgive you for improving your abilities just this once then. Hinata said as she laughed haughtily. I couldn't contain my laugh. PFFT, right. I shook my head. Anyways, since you've begun using magic, I think it's fair game that I do so as well. I said as I snapped my fingers. Hinata instantly raised her sword into a defensive position. You still snap your fingers? She said with a sigh. I shrugged as all around her, spheres of compressed space appeared. It adds to the presence. Hinata looked around warily. I felt the effects of Usurper attempting to latch onto my spells, and for once, I allowed it to work. I was curious to see how Usurper would affect an individual spell. Before, Hinata always attempted to weaken me and, by extension, my magic power, which would result in weaker spells if her skill worked on me. She had seriously explored her options with Usurper, which was good. It was a powerful skill that allowed the user to copy skills and arts, a trump card that, if used properly, could elevate Hinata to the peak of this world. The only restriction was that it worked best the stronger she was. As she was now, she couldn't hope to weaken me or copy any of my skills and arts unless I let her. If she were stronger, she still wouldn't be capable of doing so, thanks to Othinus. But I'm a special case. Others won't have Amanas or ultimate skill blocking analysis attempts. I felt my spell grow weaker, it just lacked a lot of the oomph it had previously. I held my left pointer finger upwards before pointing at Hinata. Archangel shoot down. I chanted. I didn't need to say the name, but it added to the cool factor. Probably. I was sure that this wouldn't cause Hinata any issues. In fact, I was fairly certain that I knew how she would defend against my spell. This was just to confirm a suspicion of mine. Hinata closed her eyes for a moment. I felt space warp around her, enveloping Hinata in a spatial distortion, separating the space around her from the natural world. Each sphere of compressed space disintegrated harmlessly once they got within range of Hinata. It seems you've mastered distortion field fairly well, Hinata. Hinata breathed under my praise. I had spent decades mastering this art. It was incredibly difficult to learn, but thanks to your blessing amplifying my affinity with space I managed to do it. I nodded. It's a very difficult art. I would even say it is at the ultimate level. That's another ultimate level art in your arsenal. You are someone of relevance in this world now, I said, shooting her a thumbs up from my free hand. Hinata scoffed. I'd be upset at your implications if I wasn't well aware of how much room I still have to grow. I nodded. That's good. Getting a big head may get you killed. She rolled her eyes. Getting a big head may get me killed? Have you seen yourself, Felix? You have the biggest head I've ever seen. I shrugged my shoulders. That may be true, but I have someone who can bring me back down to earth when I need a good slap. Oh? Have I met this person? Hinata asked curiously. I shook my head. No, you haven't. I don't think anyone knows of Othinus's existence except for probably Raphael and, by extension, Rimuru. Plus I still knew I wasn't unbeatable, not when Milim roamed the lands. She was so overpowered it wasn't even funny. Even if I had a chance against her now I wouldn't underestimate her. Hinata waited a few moments as if she expected me to say something. When I didn't speak, Hinata began. Pouting? Fine then, if you do not wish to tell me then let us finish chatting. You wanted to see how much I've grown? Well, I'll show you. Holy power began leaking off of her in waves. She really is just a reactor of holy power. The amount of holy power she was releasing would cause even Arcuaid, Lalatina, and Megaman to raise an eyebrow. It would harm them after all. It seems Hinata was finally done playing around. 6 yellow wings made out of pure holy power appeared behind Hinata. She ascended to the skies, breaking the sound barrier in the process. Rap! She roared as she dived down towards me. I noticed her rapier was now coated in copious amounts of holy power, but along with that she was drawing on the power of an earth elemental, imbuing her rapier with its properties. Hinata was trying to take advantage of my elemental weakness to earth, though sadly for her, that just wouldn't be enough. I bent my knee slightly before jumping upwards. Our blades met in a fiery clash. If we were to have done this somewhere else, the surroundings would be torn apart and scorched down to bedrock. Hinata gritted her teeth as she attempted to knee me in the hip, but my infinity blocked her attempt. Hinata was doomed to lose this battle if she couldn't come up with a way to bypass infinity. That was the minimum required of her if she wanted to one day reach me with her attacks. Then she would have to worry about multi-dimensional barrier. I'm sure that'll drive her crazy, but baby steps. Without wasting another moment, Hinata instantly jumped back into action. She was searching for a way to get past my infinity, searching for a small way or opening left for her spiritrons to get past my infinity. With one swift movement, she began her dance, each attack flowing into the next without a moment of delay. From thrusts to swings, each of them flowed naturally and she even used the momentum of my own blocks and parries to set herself up for her next attack. No stroke was out of place, and with each movement, she looked as if she were dancing. I will begin incorporating elements of Hinata Tsukuhichi's swordsmanship style into your own. I suppose that alone was a compliment from Othinus. Othinus instantly copied and analyzed Hinata's movements, though she hadn't modified my swordsmanship style as I didn't want her to actively help me in this fight. Our sword battle turned into a pure dance between the two of us, with each of us searching for any openings in each other's attacks. Though I wasn't going all out, I could see Hinata's expression become more and more strained as each second passed. Her eyes narrowed as she began pushing herself even further. Her footsteps became lighter, her balance never wavering. If there was one thing that Hinata was, it was stubbornness. So she continued to push her body past her limits. Gritting her teeth as her seamless stance changed into a different, more aggressive tempo. As time went on, Hinata was put more and more on the back foot even though I wasn't even using 5% of my power, though it wasn't like I would have gone all out on Hinata in the first place, she wouldn't stand a chance if I did. It may be arrogant of me to think so, but with my recent upgrades, it was nigh impossible for Hinata to even react before I had my blade to her neck if I was going all out. There would be no point in us sparring if I did that. Now if one were to look at our battle from an outside point of view, they would just see Hinata and I appear at different points, shockwaves cascading around the room and our blades clashing before vanishing and appearing in a different point in space. Hinata Sakaguchi. Hinata kneeled on the floor, exhausted and drained of a large chunk of her energy. After her original attempt of piercing through Felix's stupid barrier using spiritrons failed, she was stuck in a stalemate of sorts. Perhaps Felix could have taken her out at any point in time, but he seemed to be content to continue the spar, but it wasn't like he went easy on her. He had used what he called one of the mysteries of the hazy style on her, which she managed to defend against, though Felix had said he still had more in store for her later. She looked down at the rapier that was held within her palm and did all she could to stop herself from leaping at Felix and hugging him. She had not expected to get her precious blade back after passing it on to Chloe. She had accepted that fact, but that did not mean she would not miss her partner. It was quite ironic that her moonlight saber and holy armaments were created to be imitations of the masked hero's equipment, and yet they would go on to become that very same masked hero's equipment. Time truly worked in odd ways. While the equipment Felix had given her was obviously not the same, it was a perfect replica. She could not tell the difference between it and the original. It was just as powerful as Moon Mistress, and thankfully, it had promptly accepted her as its wielder. Then there was the armor, which was in the same boat as Divine Moonlight. It suited her perfectly. She could only smile fondly. Felix really was a softie. Her eyes hardened as she shifted her gaze to Felix, who was standing 20 feet away, his katana held in his right hand casually. She had failed to cut him once over a period of 12 hours. Throughout the 12 hours their spar had taken place, she had continuously attempted to pierce through Felix's defenses, but no matter what she tried, all her attempts failed. Sometimes, Felix even seemed to know what she would do before she did it. It reminded her of her mathematician, which had a sub-skill that allowed her to calculate the odds of certain things and predict movement through it. Even Melt/Slash now failed to breach through his stupid barrier, holy power failed, elemental magic failed, battle will failed. She had tried practically everything in her arsenal, and even her unique skills failed to assist her in her endeavor. She gritted her teeth at how helpless she felt. Even after all this time, after all the hardship she went through, she still failed to reach her goal. She still failed to make Felix proud of what she was capable of. Felix had praised her multiple times throughout their spar, but that was not enough for Hinata. No, she needed to breach his barrier just once to prove that everything she had been through had been worth it, that after all this time she had made progress. She knew it was a deluded line of thinking. She was the masked hero, a person worshipped by humanity, yet she felt she just had to do this. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. No, she would not give up now, no matter how hopeless things seemed. If there was one thing Hinata Sakaguchi knew about herself, it was that when she set her mind on something, she would stubbornly cling to her beliefs and goals. She grit her teeth as she once again went through each of her abilities, trying to think of anything that would work. She would hold a vendetta against Felix for all this, that she swore. All of a sudden, she heard an emotionless voice resound in her head. The unique skill, Vendetta, has been acquired. Hinata could feel her eyes widening as she felt the birth of something within her soul. She felt her overall energy be drained slightly as it was used in the creation of this new skill. She quickly took in all the information on her new unique skill. She had not acquired a new unique skill on her own since she was first summoned to this world. Infinity Prison and Absolute End were acquired with the help of Chloe, so she did not count those. But this could work. It embodied the desires she felt at that exact moment. She wanted to breach Felix's stupid barrier and make him eat his words. She wanted to blow his mind. Felix squinted at her suspiciously before smiling. A new unique skill, huh? Well, I'll be nice and not analyze it just yet. Let's see what you got. Hinata rolled her eyes. She did not believe that Felix could analyze her skill when she herself had never used it before. What was he going to do, scan her entire soul from his position? Yeah, right. Even if he could do that, she would sense it. Probably. She smirked as she rose from her position. Most of her reserves were exhausted, but if she pushed herself, she could last a little longer. Felix and her came to a silent understanding as he raised his katana in preparation for her assault. Her gaze wandered to the katana, which had changed quite a bit since she last saw it. Now the aura it emanated was even more devastating than her own rapiers. She did not use any of the sub-skills available to her from her new unique skill. She did not want Felix to analyze the ability and through his absurd ability to copy her skill and quickly understand what she was going to attempt. Felix's abilities were incredibly enraging, so it matched him perfectly, Hinata thought with amusement. She narrowed her eyes and activated thought acceleration. She would only have one shot at this before Felix understood what her skill did. She would have to make that one chance count, even if she had to play dirty. All of her leaking holy power was constricted to her body and sword. Now that she was running low on energy, she could not afford to wastefully utilize it anymore. She circulated her holy power internally, strengthening her body and rapier. All of a sudden, an idea came to her mind. Melt/Slash, paired with her new ability, would work quite well, but she was hesitant to use it on Felix. Melt Slash was an ultimate tier ability. If she truly managed to reach Felix with it, she feared she may harm him grievously, which she didn't want, so she decided to hold off on using Melt Slash. It didn't matter because, in the end, Hinata's goal for this fight was to land one solid hit on Felix. She did not need Melt Slash to do that. But she needed a plan to take Felix off guard. Even if she managed to penetrate through his barrier, he would just block her strike with his katana and then counterattack, just as he always did. Breaking through his barrier wouldn't be enough to reach him, but she had a plan. She lowered her thought acceleration. Felix hadn't moved an inch. She intensified the amount of holy power she was imbuing within her rapier. Her rapier was now glowing almost as bright as the sun. If all the energy in her rapier was released at once, it would cause kingdom-ending levels of destruction. Predictive calculation failed to inform her of the likelihood of success, but Hinata was used to that when dealing with Felix. All of a sudden, the silence ended. She dashed forward as sonic explosions erupted behind her. Felix kept his eyes firmly on her, his pupils tracking her movements even at her astronomical speeds. A moment later, she appeared in front of Felix, her blade aimed for his chest, and as predicted, Felix blocked her strike, his katana blazing with fighting spirit and, along with one other energy, divinity. Before she traveled back in time with Chloe, she had no idea what divinity was. She recalled vividly when Felix had beaten her to the ground with a branch he found on the ground. Hinata remembered being flabbergasted and enraged that a mere stick was able to best her, but she also knew there was something she was missing. Back then, she had sensed a mysterious, almost ethereal energy on the branch, and when she asked Felix about it, he did not give her a clear answer, seemingly trying to play the mysterious wise old master. Now she knew. Divinity was a very powerful force. Felix had not used it in their spar so far for some reason, but it seemed he was taking her a bit more seriously due to the unknown nature of her new unique skill. She winced as her rapier strained against Felix's katana. Felix had stopped increasing the amount of raw strength he was using against her, purposefully using just a little more than she was to strain her. She did not bother to discharge any of the holy power she had stored in her rapier yet, as his barrier would just stop it from reaching him. No, Hinata had a different plan in mind. Some would call it a suicidal plan, but it was her best chance at bypassing Felix's barrier, and she would not let the chance slip away from her. She could use one of Vendetta's sub-skills now, but she did not. Felix copying her skill and, by extension, learning about it would ruin everything. Felix was looking at her curiously as their blades were locked together. She scoffed. She wished to knee him in the groin, but that would be a pointless waste of her already dwindling energy. TSK. Is this all you have, Hinata? I was curious about that unique skill you just developed, but it seems it has some conditions to use if you have not used it yet, or you are planning something. She smirked. You'll find out soon enough. The world went silent to Hinata as the two of them continued to clash for what felt like an eternity. She was waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike, to use the trump card of her new unique skill. She was focusing on every single movement, on every single opening. She held the urge to use the few openings Felix intentionally left open as traps. They looked so enticing right now. But gritting her teeth, she continued their swords dance. All of a sudden, Hinata saw it. Felix was going on the offense. He appeared in front of her, his katana held out in a jabbing motion. That was when she did something she would ordinarily never do. She ignored Felix's jab and focused on her own blade, which was still bursting with holy power. Pain erupted inside of her as Felix's katana stabbed through her armor and almost skewered her through her breast. Felix's eyes widened in surprise and slight horror as he was likely wondering why she hadn't moved to block. Despite Felix's blow bypassing her pain nullification, the pain was minimal as she had already built up a pain tolerance. Hinata ignored the pain and activated one of Vendetta's sub-skills as her blade continued forward. Her blade gained a mysterious new property as it ignored the annoying barrier Felix always kept up. Much to her surprise, after piercing through the first barrier, she felt her rapier begin to clash with another barrier. Hinata's eyes widened. Did Felix seriously have multiple defensive barriers up at all times? That's not fair. Damn it. Was she going to fail now? After all this? After developing a unique skill just to beat Felix, she would fail now? No. She refused. She began to pour even more energy into her skill. Even if she used up everything she had, she would get one hit in. Despite knowing it could be fatal if a spiritual life form like her ran out of energy, she still continued forth. A few moments later, something clicked. She used her very soul energy to reinforce her attack, something even more foolish than what she was already doing, and yet finally her rapier passed through the barrier, which, oddly enough, reminded her of distortion field. Thankfully, Guaranteed Strike was uniquely suited to bypass barriers. It allowed her to penetrate almost any barrier as long as she had the equivalent energy. She had practically drained herself of all of her energy with this one attack. Of course, an ability as powerful as guaranteed strike at conditions. She had to choose a point to strike beforehand, and once the strike was in motion, she could not stop her attack no matter what. Even if someone appeared behind her and was about to kill her, she could do nothing to defend against it in that scenario. Guaranteed strike was very much a trump card that should be saved as a final resort, as using it could easily result in her death. Her blade pierced through all of Felix's barriers. Her rapier forced its way through Felix's skin, which was somehow as hard as diamonds. Her rapier didn't manage to get far, only drawing minuscule amounts of blood. But she did it. She hadn't wasted all her time. She managed to reach Felix. Even as blood erupted from her mouth, she couldn't stop smiling. "You stupid strong-headed girl." She gave Felix a bloody grin. I did it." Hinata smiled at me as blood leaked out of her lips. I did it. I pulled my katana out of her breast. I managed to stop myself before I actually skewered her, so the physical damage to Hinata wasn't that bad. I could have stopped myself sooner, but the bulk of my computational power is through Othinus, who I was restricting myself from using. What did cause a significant amount of damage to her was the fighting spirit and divinity I had coating my sword, but I could take care of that. "My apologies, Master." Othinus began with what I could tell was genuine remorse. "I was aware that perhaps you would have not wished to continue with your action, yet I felt that Hinata needed this moment to truly progress. As this was a safe environment, I opted to let things play out." "It's fine, Othinus. Hinata isn't seriously hurt." I looked down at my chest. Hinata's rapier was still stabbed into me, but barely any blood was flowing out, and I only felt minor amounts of pain due to the holy power she had imbued within her blade. She really is an idiot, isn't she? Going through all that to just cause a flesh wound. Normally I'd be able to catch her practically suicidal tactic with future attack prediction. Future attack prediction possesses the ability to forecast the potential movements of an opponent and then seeing the movement the opponent will make with 100% accuracy. All this is done through calculations. This ability feels like another one of their senses, each possible movement and their trajectory clearly visible to them like streaks of light. Black streaks indicate a more unpredictable movement, such as a feint or trap, while glowing streaks indicate that the movement is guaranteed to happen. It's not guaranteed to forecast for every attack, but those that it does forecast in the form of the glowing streaks are guaranteed to happen. However, since this ability's routes lie in calculations and I told Othinus not to assist me to give Hinata a fighting chance, I had to rely on my own computation ability, which was far inferior to that of Othinus, Amanus. Of course I still managed to predict a decent chunk of Hinata's attacks, just not that last one due to just how out of the ordinary it was. It just wasn't like her normally composed self to do something that reckless, but it did work. I'd give her that. I just didn't have enough information to come up with an accurate calculation. I didn't know the nature of Hinata's unique skill. I shook my head. She was taking this spar way too seriously. A suicide tactic to just reach me was pretty foolish. I disagree, Master. This spar itself was not important to Hinata, but it was the meaning behind it. According to my analysis, Hinata Sakaguchi wished to prove something to herself and perhaps to you. This spar was simply the medium that she chose to do so. Now that she has done so, I believe she has likely broken through a mental block of sorts. Huh, well, that's good then. Now just what could she have been trying to prove to herself? I likely wasn't going to get an answer to that question on my own, so I focused on taking care of Hinata. Hinata was now leaning against my chest. Sorry for ruining your clothes, Felix." Hinata mumbled against my chest. I gently stroked her hair. "It's fine. It was easy to get rid of any stains on clothing with magic." I gripped my katana tightly, slowly pulling it out of Hinata's breast. Hinata's armor rapidly began repairing the hole in it and improving itself. Normally, her armor would have protected her from an attack like mine, but my divinity was too powerful for her armor to counteract, and so it allowed my blade through and focused on protecting the rest of Hinata's body, isolating the divinity as much as it could. God-grade equipment could be considered to have wills of their own. Hinata's armor sensed the incoming danger and realized it wasn't equipped to handle my power, so it focused its energy on holding off the divinity within my blade. Thanks to that, my divinity didn't cause much damage to Hinata. My fighting spirit, however, did. I easily dispersed my divinity due to how intertwined it was with my nature. For my fighting spirit, I had to try a little though. I focused on controlling my fighting spirit that was within Hinata's body and began dispersing it. Though my fighting spirit was in Hinata's body, I still retained some level of control over my fighting spirit. It originates from my aura after all. Now that my divinity was no longer counteracting Hinata's natural healing as a saint, it was rapidly healing her internal wounds. I have analyzed the unique skill, Vendetta, now that the spar is over. My mind quickly went over the unique skill, and I was shocked at just how busted it was. What the fuck is this, Hinata? I have a feeling pure spite is what caused Hinata to develop this unique skill. Literally all of its sub-skills can be used to directly counter me. She managed to use pure willpower to temporarily push the skill to the ultimate level, allowing one of its sub-skills to successfully pierce through infinity, and not just that but also the multi-dimensional barrier as well. Though I wasn't focusing much of my energy on my multi-dimensional barrier, I was a bit distracted with my blade piercing through Hinata's chest. If I wanted, I could have reinforced it and completely neutralized Hinata's attack, but no need to spoil Hinata's mood with that tidbit now. Her unique skill, Vendetta, had a few sub-skills, the first of which was very similar to the move of a certain demon. Full counter allowed Hinata to reflect any sort of magical, physical, or spiritual attack back at her opponent with double the power, and it can be used through a weapon or through her bare fists. How the hell did Hinata get a skill like this? No, seriously, how? Is the voice of the world stealing things from other worlds or something? Copyright laws can even affect multiversal abstract systems. I pushed past my disbelief as I focused on the next sub-skill. Sword Flow, which causes each connecting strike of Hinata's to become twice as powerful as the last. Everything about the attack is amplified: magic power, aura, holy power, etc., which allows her to deal much more damage over time. A useful ability, but not one that I'm all that worried about, since the odds of Hinata managing to reach a high enough level in Sword Flow in an actual fight with me were astronomically low unless I sandbag a lot. Then there was Hunter, which allowed her to find weak spots in her opponents and flaws in their form. Preemptive Strike allows Hinata to perceive and react to attacks before they occur, giving them a brief window of enhanced speed and precision to counterattack. So this was similar to Laplace's unique skill, Seer, if to a lesser degree than Seer. In combination with Mathematician, Preemptive Strike will be a rather powerful ability. All of those sub-skills made for a fearsome skill. I was kinda proud that I made someone spiteful enough to develop a unique skill. Honestly, that has to be a record. I focused back on Hinata. That's one hell of a unique skill you got. It's pushing the boundaries of what a unique skill should be capable of. No, this was a cut above the rest of the unique skills, similar to how Gluttony was also a cut above the rest. Hinata sighed in relief as her wound closed. Thanks for healing me. She mumbled against my chest. No problem. Just don't do something that foolish again. It was your fault. She protested as she tucked herself into the crook of my neck. This position was getting weird really quickly, but I wasn't going to protest against having a woman as hot as Hinata pressed against me. It's not my fault that you had to resort to suicidal tactics to actually wound me, I retorted. Hinata giggled almost drunkenly. This was totally getting weird. I actually did it, didn't I? I cut you. That you did. I'm proud of you. I don't know why, but I felt like Hinata needed to hear that. Hinata sighed in relief as she trembled for a moment before regaining control of herself. I lowered us down to the floor and took a seat. Hinata didn't resist and fell to the floor with me. Seeing as she didn't seem to want to move anytime soon, I decided to just relax. That was a good fight. Chapter 142, Divine Human. I gently lowered us down to the floor and took a seat. Hinata didn't resist and fell to the floor with me. Seeing as she didn't seem to want to move anytime soon, I decided to just relax. That was a good fight. Hinata was pretty drained from this fight. Her last attack alone used over 400,000 DP from what I sensed. Yet, it still was normally incapable of piercing my barriers. Multi-dimensional barrier generally requires more than that to be broken through, doubly so if I actively focus on reinforcing it. Hinata got lucky that I was distracted since I had just skewered her, or else my multi-dimensional barrier wouldn't have been breached, even if her attack had managed to reach the ultimate level. That reckless girl even used her soul energy to reinforce the attack, which played another large part in piercing through multi-dimensional barrier. She'll regenerate her soul energy, but it'll take a while. I believe this is what is called a sore loser. I'm not a sore loser. Whatever you say. Of course, you inherited that verbal tick from Odin. Seeing that Othinus wasn't responding, I closed my eyes and rested. Hinata herself was pretty drained. Her EP was down to a mere 10,000, she was at the level of a mere greater Magin now, and it'll take her at least a week to recover back to peak condition. Though it was pretty amusing in the sense that in some places in the cardinal world, greater Magins were considered land gods. It really put into perspective how much Hinata had grown, that even the so-called land gods that many Magin worshipped were so beneath her notice. Though that was true even when I first met her. After a couple of minutes of resting, I decided to speak up. Why did you go to such lengths to wound me, Hinata? I had a vague idea of Hinata's reasons, but I would never truly know unless she told me. Hinata sighed against my neck. I had a feeling you would ask me that. She muttered softly. Hinata took a moment to respond to my question. You are unaware of my past from before I came to this world, correct? I nodded. I have no clue what you got up to in your old world. I made a move to lift Hinata off of me so we could talk face to face, but as I did so Hinata gripped the sleeve of my arm. "Alright, you wanna stay like this, that's fine," I said. Hinata held her elbows tightly at her side. She took a deep breath. To sum it all up, my father's company had gone bankrupt. He ended up gambling and got to a point where he was so deep into debt that my family lost everything. My mother was slowly going crazy from all the stress, and I focused my blame on my father, not considering that he may have also been suffering. "No, I forced myself to not consider that to justify myself," she said with hesitation. I winced as I took that all in. I'm not quite sure what to say to all that. Hinata ignored my words and continued, though I could feel her grip on my sleeve tighten as she grew more nervous. "In the end, like the broken girl I was, I killed my father for the life insurance money so that the lives of myself and my mother wouldn't be ruined. I eventually got summoned to this world in my first year of high school. I continued to blame him even in this world in an entirely new life. I knew that I wouldn't be welcomed back by my mother, and so I decided that I would help humanity in this world. And that, perhaps, I would be able to atone for my sins." I slightly winced after hearing that. I wasn't going to comfort Hinata and lie to her face saying that what she did was not a sin. It was just about coming to accept it and the circumstances she ended up in. Most of the people I knew at this world were deeply fucked up individuals with some trauma, most just hid behind a mask of cheerfulness like Milim. But even as I ventured into this world of heroes and demon lords, I still felt hatred for him. There were things that distracted me from that hatred and even the guilt I felt. Hinata looked up at me with a light of vulnerability in her eyes. "Like enjoying my time with you. Even your incessant teasing helped." Normally, I'd have a quip to respond to that, but I could tell that now wasn't the time. I only let go of my hatred after spending so long being a hero. I accepted what had happened and forgave myself for my part in it. I was human, and it is in our nature to have weak hearts. I have a feeling I know what was holding Hinata back from awakening as a true hero. "It seems like you didn't have an easy life, Hinata, and while I can't say that I agree with what you did, it's not my place to judge. It's not like I'm a beacon of morality." I don't think Hinata was telling me this to receive validation or anything, she just seemed to want a listening ear. Hinata laughed, hearing what I had said. "That's true. You are not moral at all. It's a wonder how I began to foul." She shook her head. "Never mind." I blinked as I considered the implications of what Hinata was about to say. I sighed, I could think about all that later. Right now I think Hinata just needed me to be there for her. If she wanted to open up to me about what she felt, I'd be there, but I'll let her take the first step. We sat in silence for a little while before Hinata continued. "I guess in the end, I just felt like I needed to prove something to myself, to prove something to you." Hinata whispered as she ducked her chin. I quirked a brow. "You don't really need to prove anything to me. I literally decided to teach you here and there with no hopes in mind, it was just something to pass the time." Hinata laughed. "I am well aware of your petty reasons for taking me on as a student. Did you enjoy beating me into the ground?" "I did, in fact, enjoy that," I said with a smug smile. "I am aware that I did not need to prove anything to you, but I still wish to do so, to prove to you that you had not wasted your time and effort on me, but most of all, to prove to myself that I could reach my goals, that I had not reached my limit, that I could still be a hero in this age. That simple flesh wound I caused you meant the world to me," Hinata said with a deep light of conviction in her eyes. Did perhaps beating Hinata into the ground with no visible effort cause her to doubt herself and give her an inferiority complex? Well. Oops. Now I know for certain that I can accomplish my goals, and know this, Felix, I will keep striving to surpass you," Hinata declared. Well, it seemed like it all worked out in the end, though if I ever took on a student ever again, perhaps I needed to reevaluate my methods of teaching. Even if I did give Hinata constructive advice after my beatings, it seems that I should have been a bit more gentle on her. Though to be fair to myself, when I first decided to teach Hinata here and there, it was out of maliciousness. What can I say? I'm a petty guy. Well, you live, and you learn. That's part of life. Even with a super genius in my head, I was still bound to make mistakes from time to time, especially since that very same super genius didn't actually know everything and didn't correct each and every one of my actions. Still, I laughed at Hinata's bold claim. You want to surpass me, huh? Then why don't you learn just how much you have to grow then? Let's compare our power. What I was doing could very well destroy Hinata's resolve, but the woman I knew would grow from the experience and surpass my expectations. And if she didn't? Well, that was fine too. I didn't want to drown her in my expectations. That sounded like a shitty way to live. If she failed, then she would either keep trying until she achieved her goal or she would give up, and while I don't think that was likely, if she chose to do so, I'd still support her. I cared about her enough to do that much. Hinata looked up at me with widened eyes. Are you going to? I nodded, a mask of smugness on my face. Be honored. I shall unleash my true power for a few moments. I will allow you to bask in my magnificent presence, I announced grandly. Hinata rolled her eyes. Yes, thank you, great Lord Felix, for granting me this privilege. Hinata droned out, but I could tell she was excited. Her previously weary mood had improved a bit as well. I know that Hinata has been trying to learn just how strong I am ever since I first met her. Hinata pulled away from my chest and stood up. She was pretty much healed now, ignoring her low energy reserves. I stood across from Hinata. I'll make sure to avert my spiritual pressure from you, but be careful just in case. Hinata nodded. I had long since forgiven Hinata for her part in the Falmouth invasion. It took me some time, but I looked at things from her perspective. Hinata personally wasn't very invested in the Falmouth invasion. She simply used it to accomplish her goal, which was slaying Rimuru. Falmouth did not answer to Hinata after all, so she wouldn't have been able to do anything to stop the invasion unless she wanted to cause an international incident. As for her attacking Rimuru, in her eyes, Rimuru was wearing her teacher's and mother figure's body like a meat suit. It's normal to lose your cool a bit in that kind of situation. But even then, Hinata was careful. She received information from a merchant who had been building his reputation with her for years. From what Hinata told me, he had been giving her information on various monster and magic attacks over the years, allowing her to save more lives, so Hinata had no reason to doubt the merchant's words. When she was fighting Rimuru, she ignored Rimuru's various pleas to stop the fight because, for all she knew, Rimuru was trying to bait her. In her eyes, this was a malicious magic that had killed her teacher. Her teacher was kind, and perhaps Rimuru had used that to trick her to kill her. Now that she was fighting him, she wouldn't make that mistake. Even when Rimuru began bringing up his otherworldly nature, I didn't blame Hinata for not taking him seriously. Rimuru had access to some of Shizu's memories, which was part of the reason for his sudden attachment to the kids, to Hinata, and even to Ecchi. For all Hinata knew, he was using Shizu's memories to lure her into a false sense of security. So, while I am upset about the entire situation, I'm not dense enough to realize Hinata's position. I shook my head. I was getting lost in my thoughts. Now I had some flexing to do. I backed away from her a few extra feet, and for the first time since I had gained the dragon factors, I stopped tightly concealing my power within my body. Hinata Sakaguchi? Hinata stared wide-eyed at the scene in front of her. Felix's coat was waving around him, his hair flailing wildly, and currents of wind destroying some of the pillars in the room. She could feel the dimension itself shaking as if it was struggling to contain the torrent of power in front of her. She had been wanting to understand Felix's true power for as long as she had known him. At first it was so she would know just how strong she needed to be able to neutralize him if he became a threat to humanity. She did not think she could bring herself to fight Felix should he become a threat to humanity now. She had become far too attached. She now wanted to understand Felix's true power so she knew just how far she had left to grow before she would catch up to him. She was growing distracted, so she focused back on Felix. The entire dimension was shaking as Felix was releasing a truly absurd amount of energy. The very same dimension that was created by the fairy queen Ranmaris and powered by the storm dragon Veldora. Even if she used everything she had, she didn't think she could destabilize the dimension to this extent. His energy was so vast that she found herself comparing it to that of Veldora's. Felix had enough energy that the closest being she could match him with was a true dragon. She gritted her teeth as she realized just how far away she was from him. A bug was closer in strength to her than she was to Felix, and that was no lie. So this is the height of power, Felix? How wondrous. Felix had said that he was diverting his aura away from her, which he was, but even then, she could still feel the sheer intensity of his aura. It was overwhelming, overpowering, dominating. Space itself was warping under Felix's spiritual pressure. He wasn't even releasing his Demon Lord's haki. Hinata imagined that if Felix decided to release that as well into the mix, then even if his aura was purposefully diverted from her, she would likely fall unconscious and enter a coma, if not die altogether. She was a complete saint with centuries of combat experience, yet she knew from the bottom of her heart that she would be helpless against Felix's aura alone should he pressure her with it. Was she this far away from reaching him? Would she ever be able to reach him? Hinata ignored the doubts that had crept to the surface of her mind. Even after all she had experienced, she was only human. Part of being human was the doubts regular humans faced about themselves. She clenched her fists. No, she would not fail, not after all she had been through. She would continue to train and grow stronger until she became someone that Felix could rely on in his times of need, and more importantly until she became the hero she always wanted to be. She closed her eyes and spread her senses further towards Felix, attempting to truly understand just how powerful he was. One odd thing she noticed was that Felix's aura felt slightly like Veldora's head when she had sealed him. She could feel the hints of draconic power within his aura, but she brushed that off for now. She attempted to use her unique skill, mathematician, to get a deeper analysis of his power. Much to her surprise, it seemed that her skill was no longer being blocked. She used one of mathematician's sub-skills, analytical appraisal, to release waves that entered Felix and performed a full scan of his composition. She received the information and was further shocked. She was able to understand Felix's physical composition, the strength of his body, and the amount of magicules in his body, which allowed her to assess his strength accurately. She used another one of mathematician's sub-skills, predictive calculation, which allowed her to calculate something and predict the outcomes based on the calculations depending on her ability. It can be used to read her opponent's flow of power to prevent energy waste to a certain extent and predict the future of any actions or events with complex calculations. She had asked her skill what the odds were of her beating Felix as he was now, and the answer was 0%. Part of her was disappointed that even after thousands of years, she was still unable to even touch Felix if he was taking her seriously. Hinata knew that now that her skill was known to Felix, she would likely have a far more difficult time breaching his barriers. She got through to Felix on a fluke, but that did not take away from her achievement in her mind. Luck was an important part of combat. She had done something Chloe had never done, Luminous had never done. She had done something no human had done in the past. It didn't matter if she got lucky. Not to mention now she understood just how much Felix was holding back. To say Felix hadn't been using even a tenth of his power in their spar would not be an exaggeration. His physical strength alone would cause her issues, let alone the sheer quantity and quality of the energy within him. She had no idea how Felix had gotten so powerful in such a short period of time. He hadn't been in this world for even 5 years. When she first met him, she had been in this world for around 8 years, and she was far weaker than him at that point in time. Felix really was a cheater. What was it he had said before? Ah, yes, he needed to be nerfed. But she wasn't going to allow that to slow her down. Felix. She found herself speaking out. She didn't know if he could even hear her, but she continued nonetheless as her fists clenched hard enough to crush Diamond. You are more powerful than I possibly could have imagined. Only now do I realize how much you were holding back in our spar. She didn't take that personally. If he went all out, she wouldn't have stood a chance. In the end, it didn't matter if Felix went all out in their spar or not. She had managed to make progress. She managed to do something she previously thought impossible, and that was enough for her. It proved that her dreams and aspirations were not impossible to accomplish. They would just take time. Even now, I can sense your power growing, but know this, I will never stop trying to catch up. I will become someone you can rely on. I will become the hero you always thought I could be, of this I swear. She said unwaveringly. She felt as if she had reached enlightenment all over. She knew what the peak of this world looked like, and she would make it there no matter what. For she was Hinata Sakaguchi, and she had known defeat and grown all the stronger for it. Confirmed. Conditions satisfied. The human Hinata Sakaguchi will begin evolving from a saint into a divine human. And then she blacked out. As Veldora was reading the next chapter in his manga, he froze. The amount of power he was sensing was astronomical. He knew of barely anyone with that much potential power. Originally, it was just his sister Velzard, and then recently, he met Chloe, who had almost as much energy as he did. Somehow. She wasn't quite at his level, but she was closer to him than anyone he had ever met excluding his sister, Velzard. But this wasn't either of those two. No, this power was familiar, it almost felt like his own, yet not his own. He felt hints of his own factor intermingled with his sister and elder brother's factor, but that wasn't all. The more dominant factor of the aura was one he had grown rather familiar with. Felix's spatial-oriented aura was hard to not recognize. He knew his best bud, Felix, was fighting with Hinata. He had sensed him show up when he was training Zijin. Once he was done, he popped by and took a look at the fight. Only Felix seemed to have noticed him, as Hinata was far too focused on the battle in front of her. Veldora watched for a couple of minutes before leaving, and he was impressed. As much as he hated to admit it, Hinata was showcasing some of the abilities the masked hero had shown when she had sealed him. Especially that weirdly annoying barrier that erased all emission attacks. He had already met Chloe and Hinata, and to say he was shocked when he learned that they were the masked hero would be an understatement. He couldn't believe that someone he saw as a child and the woman who he was able to casually slap around both grew to be able to seal him. Veldora could only blame the time skip Hinata and Chloe went through. It was a rule of anime and manga that whenever one went through a time skip, they would grow by leaps and bounds in power. If only he could experience a time skip of his own, he might finally be able to beat his sister for once. Hell, if he combined the time skip, the shonen training arc, the rival duel, and a whole burst of power of friendship, he might even reach the levels of his older brother. Veldora shook his head. He was getting distracted. All of a sudden, he noticed his manga shelf shaking. He panicked and quickly dashed to save it from collapsing over, and thankfully he was able to make it to the shelf in time. He looked around, and he noticed his entire room was shaking. He expanded his senses only to find that his entire floor was shaking. Just what was Felix doing? Why was he releasing so much power? His power was so vast that it was causing some of the other floors to shake. These floors were little dimensions apart. Veldora breathed a sigh of relief as Felix withdrew his power after a few moments. That guy had gotten scary strong super quick. Just what was it with everyone getting overpowered all of a sudden? Though Veldora did wonder why Felix's aura was reminiscent of his own, his sisters, and his brothers. Just what had Felix done to himself? Did some of his cool aura rub off on Felix? Did Felix maybe have a training montage that he was unaware of? Felix was already strong, and now he went through a training montage of his own? That's not fair. How was he supposed to slap weaklings around if they get time skips and training montages every week? Veldora. What was that? I had to eject all the adventurers from the dungeon since all the floors were being affected in some way. I didn't want them all to die since I don't know how the aura will affect my authority. Ramiris flew up to him with a panicked expression on her face. Ah, Rimuru probably wouldn't like that. He lounged on his couch as he looked up at Ramiris. That was Felix. He answered. Ramiris' eyes widened. What? He sighed. Can't you check yourself? Felix somehow divided my floor in half and is using the other half to fight Hinata. Veldora could almost see a light bulb going off in Ramiris' head. Ah. Right, of course, I can. I was just testing you. He ignored Ramiris and got back to reading his manga. Ugh, a ton of monsters were killed by that dummy Felix. Just what was he doing? Now I have to make some excuse before those adventurers begin causing problems. Ramiris whined. Rimuru Tempest, Rimuru. He sighed as he looked up from his desk. What is it, Ramiris? I'm busy right now. Ramiris flailed around him wildly. We have a big issue. Like a super big issue. He sat up straight. What issue? Seeing as Ramiris was in charge of the dungeon, his mind immediately went there. Did something happen with the dungeon? Ramiris quickly nodded. It's all that dummy Felix's fault. He groaned. What did he do now? He had sensed Felix bypassing the spatial lock that was placed in Tempest's capital city, Rimuru City, so he had known he was back for quite some time. One of Sai's subordinates reported that he had spotted him heading towards the dungeon, where Hinata was currently watching Veldora train Zijin, so Rimuru didn't interrupt. Felix helped him get with Shuna. Now it was his turn to help his brother from another mother out. Once they returned from Luminous territory, he held a meeting with all of his executives. Chloe and Hinata were brought along as well since they were the main topic of the meeting. He had reintroduced them to everyone. Diablo seemed the most interested in the two of them. Veldora was also at the meeting and was being a sore loser about being sealed by Hinata. Hinata's taunts didn't make it any better. He always thought that Hinata was the cool beauty type, but her taunting had ruined that image. Rimuru would just blame Felix. Felix probably infected Hinata with his Felixness, resulting in her losing her cool beauty attribute. Veldora made a comment saying that Chloe felt stronger than she had in the past, which got him thinking. Could Chloe have awakened after sealing Veldora? If so, that made Hinata and Chloe even more monstrous. To be capable of sealing Veldora before even awakening was crazy. Affirmative. Going by the Storm Dragon Veldora's analysis, this masked hero had awakened after sealing Veldora. Sheesh. Chloe had said she wanted to stay in Tempest, and he saw no reason to stop her, so he agreed. Now Chloe was meeting with her friends, and even though she was in her child form, Rimuru doubted she would be able to reconnect with her friends to the same level they were at previously. Chloe was older than he could even imagine. He didn't think someone who had so many experiences would choose children as their company, but perhaps Chloe just wished to regain a piece of herself she had lost due to her curse. She wanted to relive the simple days when she just played around, and Rimuru did not wish to deny her that. Though he would need to send Kenya to Elmgia soon, he had already agreed to allow Elmgia to mentor Kenya, and Felix had offered to take Kenya to Sorcerer's Dynasty Sarian, so hopefully that would be done soon. Then Hinata planned on heading back to Ruberius to resume her duties as the leader of the 10 Great Saints, the head of the Emperor's Guards, and the chief of the Holy Knight Order. Hinata seriously had a lot on her plate. He shook his head. He was getting a bit distracted. Though he did wonder what had taken Felix so long with Luminous. Notice. Raphael had detected that Luminous Valentine was sending Felix white half-lidded glances towards the end of the meeting. Her gaze also wandered to him on numerous occasions during the meeting. It is likely that she wished to procreate with Felix White. He froze stiff for a moment. That lucky bastard. While he was here, hard at work, Felix was banging a bombshell like Luminous. He wanted to cry tears of blood. Damn harem protagonist. Life really wasn't fair. Damn handsome bastard. Well, he did have Shuna, and she was great. Maybe he shouldn't complain. Phew, that was a close one. Knowing her damn intuition, she might have felt a disturbance in the force from that brief moment. Hopefully, that was enough to restore balance. He focused back on Ramaris. Felix was sparring with Hinata, according to Veldora. Ramaris informed him. That wasn't too odd. Felix had sparred with Hinata pretty often in the past, though calling those spars would be generous since it was mostly Felix slapping Hinata into the ground with minimal effort before telling Hinata where she made mistakes. Rimuru sure as hell wouldn't want to learn under Felix. His ego would be far too bruised. He nodded to Ramaris. Did something go wrong in their spar? He asked with worry. Ramaris shook her head as she buzzed around him annoyingly. No, according to Veldora, they battled it out for 12 or so hours before Veldora sensed something amiss. Felix had released his aura all of a sudden, and boy is he strong. Rimuru looked at her in confusion. I don't see what the issue is. Sure, it's a bit weird that he released his aura, but everyone gets the urge to do that sometimes, even Veldora. Though Felix said he had a fix to that issue. He took care of his aura by just constantly releasing his aura into his stomach. He assumed Felix did something similar. Ramaris shook her head. The issue isn't that he released his aura. It was the after effects of it. He managed to shake some of the lower floors, and his aura managed to leak through to other dimensions due to Felix's alignment with a space element, which killed off a lot of the monsters in the dungeon. Rimaru's eyes widened. He what? Ramaris nodded. I know, right? I might need to go beat him up after this. Ramaris said as she began shadowboxing around him. I'd do it, but I'm going to be busy fixing up the dungeon, so it's up to you. Don't worry, I'll be cheering you on. Focus Ramaris. You said that some monsters in the dungeon were killed from Felix's aura? He would process the fact that Felix's aura could affect other floors that were literal dimensions away. What the hell is that? That's not fair. Notice. It is estimated that even the storm dragon Veldora is incapable of such a thing. Raphael hypothesizes that Felix White's nature being closely aligned with space has caused his aura to have certain spatial effects, which allowed his aura to creep into the other floors. Well, at least that explained how Felix was able to affect the other floors. Ramaris nodded to his question. Yup. Lots and lots of monsters. It'll take some time for them to respawn from Veldora's aura, but on the plus side, some monsters spawned from Felix's own aura. He looked at Ramaris with interest. Monsters spawned from Felix's aura? What kinds of monsters? Felix had kids now? Would he have to make Felix pay child support? Did Tempest even have child support laws? Ramaris shrugged her shoulders. Don't know, I haven't gotten a good look yet, but I was able to tell that most of them had attributes aligning with space. Rimuru nodded. That was probably another effect of Felix's aura. He sighed. Well, that's a silver lining, I guess. What about the adventurers? If Felix's aura managed to reach other floors, we should evacuate them just in case. He'd be giving Felix a good lecture for being so reckless later. He was running a business out here. He couldn't just have Felix messing that up. But as long as Felix realized his mistake and made sure to be careful in the future, he would forgive him, because that's what friends did. I had everyone in the dungeon teleported out for their safety. There's no telling what the effects of Felix's aura would have on those adventurers' psyche. Ramaris said. He nodded. It wasn't uncommon for humans and magians to lose themselves when exposed to the power of a being much greater than them. Veldora had said that sometimes some humans just broke down in front of him in the middle of his rampage, but perhaps that was because they just saw the storm dragon destroy everything they knew and loved. Veldora was not a good cookie back then. That's good, but I'm sure they're gonna be pretty upset about that. He mumbled. Have Beretta go down and make an announcement. We can say that Veldora and Felix were fighting, and the after effects of their battle had spread to the other floors, so for everyone's safety, they were evacuated. We can refund them the cost of entering the dungeon for today and cover the night at their inns for today. That would send a good message out to other countries as well. It would go to show that Felix was strong as well, and Felix was a known ally of Tempest. It would also further emphasize Veldora's strength since those adventurers would be talking. Perhaps it can even scare the Eastern Empire away for a little longer. Ramaris nodded. Got it, boss. Once Ramaris was gone, he sighed as he leaned back on his chair. Notice. Would the master like for Raphael to access the recordings of the dungeon? Ah, right, he could do that. Yeah, do that, show me their fight from beginning to end. Affirmative, Traini, everyone stay calm. We have everything under control. She announced to the adventurers who were forcefully ejected from the dungeon. Hey, what gives? I almost managed to defeat those stupid goblins. one adventurer yelled in protest. All of a sudden, she shivered as she looked back at the portal connecting to the dungeon. She couldn't feel anything due to the defenses that were built into the portal, but her instinct, which had been honed over centuries, told her that if she went in, she would die. All of a sudden, Beretta, one of Lady Ramorie's other subordinates, appeared next to her. "I have been ordered to make an announcement," Beretta said stoically. All the adventurers quieted down, each eager to hear an explanation. "I have received word from Lady Ramoris that Demon Lord Felix was battling the storm dragon Veldora." She heard many gasps from the crowd. Was he trying to conquer the dungeon? One adventurer yelled. Beretta ignored him. "It is due to this that you all were forcefully ejected from the dungeon today. I am sure that some of you on the higher floors felt it, but even dimensions away, their battle had the possibility of affecting the lower floors, so for everyone's safety the dungeon will be closed for the rest of the day. Everyone will be offered a refund, and the night will be covered for whichever inn you are currently staying at. We will begin working to make sure something like this never occurs again," Beretta informed everyone. "Hey. That's not fair. What about those of us who were in the middle of a big fight?" an adventurer protested. Beretta turned to the man. He was dressed in some fairly decent armor, rare grade according to Traiani's senses, and was equipped with a unique grade longsword that had one of Tempest's specialty cores in it. It seems he had gotten rather lucky with his floor loot. Beretta tilted their head in confusion. "Did you wish to remain in the dungeon and die to their aura then? Ordinarily, we shouldn't even need to compensate you as you knew the risks when you entered the dungeon. We have done this out of good faith and for all of your safety. If you all wish to die, the portal is open behind me." No one stepped forward. "Very well then. We thank you for your patience." "Hey. Who won the fight?" another adventurer asked. Beretta paused for a moment before answering. "It was a draw." And the crowd went wild. Rimuru Tempest, he stared blankly ahead as he watched the stream. Thankfully, he didn't have to spend 12 hours watching it since Raphael could speed it up, and his thought acceleration allowed him to keep up. "Felix and Hinata have really improved, haven't they?" he voiced out. Affirmative. Was it just him, or did Raphael sound worried? Nah, he was probably just imagining things. He hadn't really seen Felix fight all that much. In the past they used to spar using pure swordsmanship, but eventually, that stopped. After watching Felix body Cronoa, he knew he was pretty strong, but seeing how he handled Hinata put it all into perspective. With the way Hinata was fighting, even he would need to be careful if they ever fought again. Her swordsmanship was almost like a dance, and Felix was keeping up. Not to mention, she somehow managed to bypass Felix's ever-present barrier. He could do something similar with Uriel, Lord of Vows, as long as Felix wasn't focused on reinforcing his barrier, but that was an ultimate skill, and he didn't think Hinata had an ultimate skill. Affirmative. It is likely that Hinata Sakaguchi developed a new unique skill due to her intense desires. Due to her willpower and strength, she was able to make her unique skill as effective as an ultimate skill in some aspects. Hinata pulled a practically suicidal move to bypass Felix's barrier. She had guts, that's for sure, but he already knew that. He skipped ahead when Felix and Hinata had their little heart-to-heart. He would respect their privacy. He skipped ahead to when Felix began releasing his aura. Notice. The EP of the demon Felix White has been measured at approximately 75,123,674. What the hell, Felix? The last time that they measured his EP he was way less than that. How did he get such a big power-up? Did he secretly go have a training arc? That was pretty close to Veldora's own EP, which was at 88 million. Notice. There is a possibility that Felix White traveled to another world. Since he returns to the moment after he left, there is a possibility that Felix White had left and trained for millennia to reach his current stage. Ah, that is a possibility, isn't it? He continued to watch as Hinata gave her shonen speech about promising to catch up to Felix before she fell unconscious, with Felix catching her before she hit the ground. What was that? Notice. It has been detected that the human Hinata Sakaguchi is undergoing an evolution. Wasn't she already a saint? Affirmative. She is evolving into a divine human. Just like Chloe? He asked in surprise. Affirmative. Seriously, what was it with everyone but him getting a power-up all of a sudden? I appeared behind Hinata, catching her before she hit the ground. What's going on, Othinus? It seems that Hinata is undergoing an evolution. My eyes widened. Hinata was a saint. There was only one other higher evolution, as far as I know. Indeed, Hinata Sakaguchi is acquiring divinity and is evolving into a divine human. Huh, well, that's something. Do you know how that happened? I have my theories. Acquiring divinity is a fairly mysterious process. You acquired it due to your harvest festival. The same can be said for Rimuru Tempest and likely Chloe Aubert as well. I always thought that awakening a Daemon Lord seed and a hero's egg would be enough to acquire divinity, so that matches my expectations. But there is obviously another way to get divinity, seeing as Midraii has divinity, and now Hinata is undergoing an evolution to acquire it. It is possible that acquiring divinity is similar to reaching enlightenment. When one breaks through some kind of mental barrier in combination with a high level of willpower, it may be possible to evolve into a divine nature. Awakening as a true demon lord or true hero shares similar qualities to this. Well, that's as good a theory as any. Would you like for me to assist Hinata in her evolution? Sure, go for it. Very well, I will begin immediately. How long is she gonna be out? Approximately 24 hours. I guess I'll put her to rest then. I picked Hinata up in a princess carry and manipulated Veldora's floor to go back to normal. I watched as the floor shifted, reconnecting with its other half. The first thing I saw was Veldora lazing on one of the couches on his floor. His gaze immediately snapped to me. Felix. I nodded. Veldora, I see your spar with Zijin is over. Oh yeah, that was over a while ago. But enough about that, what was that? Why'd you release so much of your aura? You almost toppled over my manga. One of the greatest crimes possible. Veldora asked. I looked at him in confusion. What do you mean? Even if I split this floor into two smaller floors, they were still basically separate dimensions. How the hell did my aura manage to reach here? Veldora shrugged his shoulders. I don't know how it happened, but don't do that again. I don't think my heart could take seeing my precious Gakko figure shaking and on the verge of collapse. Veldora said dramatically. I slowly nodded. Sure, sorry about that. I apologized. I was at fault here, so it was the least I owed Veldora. Veldora waved me off. It's not a big deal, I managed to save my collection before it could collapse. But Rimuru is probably pretty upset with you. Some of your ore managed to leak to the lower floors, killing off a ton of the monsters. All the adventurers were evacuated just in case. My eyes widened hearing Veldora. Oops. Was I that powerful that my aura could actually pierce through the dungeon's dimensions? They were all intricately linked, but still that was pretty hard to believe, at least with my aura alone. I'm sure I could hollow purple through a few floors if I wanted to, but that was one of my highest output attacks. It may not be as impossible as you believe, Master. Upon running a further analysis, it seems that at some point your aura gained an intrinsic spatial property. Your aura grinds together with space, creating spatial disturbances as well as gaps in space-time. It was likely that through these gaps that your aura traveled to the other floors. I was not aware of this beforehand since you and I always keep your aura fully restricted in your infinity space where phenomena function differently. So I was unable to run a proper analysis on the properties of your aura. I apologize. Don't worry about it. I should have thought a bit more before releasing my aura. I don't think I've fully released my aura once since I had my harvest festival, so I don't blame Othinus. It's not like she is some omniscient being, she's my partner and everyone makes mistakes. This isn't even really her mistake to begin with, it's mine. I will make sure such an incident does not occur again. I had already planned to do a fully detailed analysis of you after evolving into a Monus, but I was focusing on reworking your skills before that, which I just finished. Othinus was right, my skills did feel a little bit different. Our Ouroboros sub-skills cost less magicules to utilize now and had some more firepower to them. With Satanale it would be much harder for me to go in a berserk state, Beelzebub's predation was now much harder to resist, and Brahma's abilities also cost less magicules to utilize. A fairly useful upgrade in my opinion, an overall optimization. Now I will focus on analyzing your full capabilities so you are fully aware of what you are capable of, Master. Got it, thanks, Othinus. It is my duty to serve you to the best of my abilities, Master. Hey, we're partners, you don't really owe me anything at this point. I appreciate you still being around and here for me. I would rather be nowhere else. After Othinus' rather heartwarming comment I focused back on my surroundings. Oops, is right, mister. A high-pitched voice scolded me. I turned around to spot Ramaris buzzing towards me. It was so much work evacuating everyone from the dungeon at once, Ramaris complained with a pout. I rolled my eyes. A chocolate chip cookie that I made using Brahma appeared in front of Ramaris. She immediately snatched it out of the air. I suppose this is enough compensation for my troubles. Ramaris responded diplomatically. Seriously, Ramaris? Another voice complained. I spotted Rimuru entering behind him. Before he could say anything I apologized. Hey, sorry. I didn't expect to cause such a mess with my aura. Rimuru had to basically temporarily shut down the dungeon, which likely won't harm Tempest's profits much at all, but it was still something that shouldn't have happened. Rimuru sighed. As long as you're careful in the future, I forgive you. The adventurers were somewhat appeased, though I had to tell them a bit of a lie. He then looked down at Hinata. who I was still carrying. A devious smirk appeared on his face. Hey, I'll save that picture for later. I'm sure it will be fun to tease Hinata with it. He mumbled. I rolled my eyes. She'll have your head. Rimuru shivered slightly. Right, and she's going to be stronger, isn't she? Maybe I'll be more careful. I nodded. Yeah, she's evolving, so she should get quite a bit more powerful. I wasn't surprised Rimuru could tell what had happened to Hinata. Raphael was no Odin, let alone Othinus. Odin practically cannibalized Raphael, but it was still a very, very good ultimate skill. That is correct, it is vastly inferior to me, but it is still very capable. Othinus complimented backhandedly. I lifted Hinata up slightly. Anyways, I'm going to put her to rest. Catch you all later. They all nodded, so I teleported back to my residence in Tempest. I gently set her down on the bed in one of my guest rooms. If you wish for me to maximize the effects of this evolution for Hinata, I suggest granting Hinata a major blessing. Since Hinata's entire being is being restructured, I will be able to incorporate the blessing deep within Hinata's soul, deeper than normally possible. Currently, Hinata has a minor blessing of mine since it was transferred from ether to her. I had planned to give her a major blessing, which would give her a massive affinity for space and a lower affinity for time in the future. But if Othinus thinks now is the best time, then I'll do it. I laid one of my hands on one of Hinata's breasts as it was a direct link to her core. Ignoring the pleasant sensation, I channeled my power into her. I wasn't going to abuse Hinata's current state to cop a feel, so I immediately let go. It only took a moment for the blessing to latch onto Hinata. I will begin getting to work now. Thanks, Othinus. I'm sure Hinata will be thankful as well. I do not care what the Vix, I mean what Hinata thinks. I simply believe this was something that would please you. Were you about to call Hinata a vixen? No, it is your imagination. I wasn't going to get into this argument, I had enough experience to know where it would go. As I was leaving the room, I was deep in thought. I have a feeling Hinata will be quite strong after this evolution of hers. She'll likely be even stronger than Arcuaid, Lalatina, and Megamon. I have done further analysis on the Artodon, Lord of Cursed Knowledge, created to remake an individual into a stronger form. And what did you find? I have optimized the ritual, reducing the soul requirement from 100,000 to 50,000. So souls are still needed, huh? Yes, I unfortunately could not remove that requirement as the ego and spirit of a soul are necessary. I'll need to find somewhere to acquire a lot of souls then, since I don't want to go and destroy a kingdom, even I'm not that bad. I have a suggestion. Guy Crimson owes you a favor, and in the ancient past, had caused the deaths of 2 kingdoms. It is likely that he still has all the souls in his possession. Ah, that's right, isn't it? Guy does owe me a favor. Well, that's an option then. Maybe I'll ask him about it whenever I see him next. I also suggest not using this ritual on all of your subordinates. According to my analysis, only Arcuaid, Megamon, and Lalatina can handle the strain of the ritual without their souls collapsing. What? This ritual involves using the energy from 50,000 souls to in essence super-evolve the target. Not everyone can handle the strain of 50,000 souls worth of energy suddenly flowing within their bodies. Ah, I see, so one needs a strong vessel to handle this ritual. Correct. I do believe that your other subordinates will reach the necessary level to be capable of handling the ritual in the future. That's good, then. I'm sure Arcuaid, Megamon, and Lalatina will be happy with the power-up whenever it happens. Chapter 143, The Platinum Saber. As I was leaving my residence, my head snapped to the southwest. I could sense a large aura heading in this direction at extremely high speeds. I was planning to head back to my territory to check on my subordinates before coming back just before Hinata should awaken, but I'd like to make sure everything was fine here first. Rimuru was my friend, so I'd back him up if he needed me to. I immediately teleported to the main gate of Rimuru City. Rimuru appeared right beside me, as did Chloe, who was in her older form. Chloe looked at me in confusion. I thought Hinata was with you, Felix. She was, but she's currently evolving. What? Evolving? Chloe's eyes widened. That's never happened before. She mumbled. Hinata has never become a divine human before? Chloe shook her head. No, but she usually never lives long enough to become a divine human in the first place. This timeline is drastically different from the rest, so I suppose it makes sense. Chloe then looked in the direction the aura was coming from. She sighed. I think I know who that is. Rimuru's face snapped to her. Really? Who is it? Chloe sighed once again. Man, this guy must be bad news. It's my brother. Demon Lord Leon. What? Rimuru yelled in shock. I didn't blame him, I was similarly in shock, even I didn't expect this. We aren't blood related. Chloe muttered. We're just super close, So we see each other as siblings. That doesn't explain anything. Rimuru responded. She sighed. Can I explain everything once he's here? I have a feeling I know why he's coming here. Rimuru sighed. Fine. As we were waiting, Rigurd ran up to us. He quickly greeted Chloe and me before facing Rimuru. Lord Rimuru. What do you wish for us to do? Sir Benimaru is already preparing the army. What? No. We aren't going to war. This is just a... Yeah, it's a friendly visit. Rimuru responded in panic. Rigurd looked at Rimuru in confusion. A friendly visit? I see, then I will inform Sir Benimaru and the others. Rimuru sighed in relief. Good, thanks, Rigurd. Rigurd gave Rimuru a salute. Of course. He then began running back into Rimuru City. It didn't take long at all for Leon to crash onto the road in front of us. He ignored Rimuru and me. His gaze was focused solely on Chloe. Now that he was in front of me, I could tell without a shadow of a doubt that this guy had Metatron. His aura was beyond holy, and I could feel the spiritrons around us. They were practically waiting and eager to follow Leon's commands. Leon was a severe threat as long as he had Metatron. Metatron was by far one of the most destructive abilities I knew of. Leon could easily destroy a continent in a couple of moments if he let loose, not to mention the other benefits Metatron offers. It doesn't only allow the user to have a very high level of control over spiritrons, but it also makes the user incredibly energy efficient, to the point that if 10 points of energy could give a normal person 10 attacks, the user of Metatron could get 100 if not 1,000 attacks. Then there was the fact that Metatron allows the user to purify multiple energies into their purest forms, allowing Leon to even purify the magicules in the air and use the purified energy for his own purposes. It also increased the rate of energy regeneration of the user astronomically. The only downside of Metatron was that it was hard to precisely control the spiritrons around the user. It was built for mass destruction and nothing more. Even though Leon had far less energy, magic power, and energy output than me, he was still a threat to be taken seriously. All of the Virtue Series skills are certifiably broken. Gabriel, Lord of Patience and its temporal abilities, Raphael, Lord of Wisdom and its sheer versatility, Metatron, Lord of Purity for its destructive abilities and energy conservation abilities, and even Uriel, Lord of Vows. Uriel's spatial abilities are immense, and then the faith system which strengthens the skill based on how much faith the user is receiving. The faith system was something that even our Abros partially inherited, increasing its power and such based on how much my subordinates had faith in me. And, of course, the Sin series, as the mirror images of the Virtue series, are all equally overpowered. But even with all of Leon's advantages, I still felt like I could beat him. Leon was most likely time-stop fodder, as is 99.99999% of the world. In fact, becoming a digital life form is damn near impossible. The only reason I was able to become one relatively easily was due to Gabriel, Lord of Patience, and Odin. Otherwise, I have no idea when I would become a digital life form, let alone learn time-stop. And even if he was a digital life form and could operate in the suspended world, I still have Amon as assisting me with manipulating infants. That's correct. My ability to assist you in the suspended world has increased. That's good then. Leon was currently dressed in a high-quality robe and golden armor. Before he could say anything, Rimuru appeared in front of him with his arms crossed. What are you doing here, Leon? Rimuru asked. Leon briefly glanced behind Rimuru, past me, and to Chloe, who was standing a little behind me. I was content to watch things play out. I wasn't going to make the first move to start a fight or anything. I was here as moral support, and because I was already here. Chloe. Leon mumbled longingly. My lips twitched at the sheer emotion behind his words. Can I leave now? I feel like this is going to be super troublesome. Leon made a move to brush past Rimuru. Unfortunately, Rimuru wasn't having that as he placed a barrier separating Leon from advancing any further. Leon's eyes narrowed as he glared at Rimuru. Step aside, Demon Lord Rimuru. Rimuru shook his head. Nua. Tell me why you're here first. It's pretty unusual for another Demon Lord to visit another Demon Lord unannounced, you know. How am I supposed to know if you're here to start trouble or not? Before Leon could respond, Chloe stepped past me. It's fine, Rimuru. Leon won't cause any trouble. Chloe said with a sad smile. Rimuru sighed, dispelling the barrier he had placed. Fine. He grunted as he stepped aside, allowing Leon to walk past him. Rimuru's fists were clenched. I could tell he wanted to punch Leon in the face, but he was holding himself back. There was a time and place for such things, now was most certainly not the time. Leon stood right in front of Chloe. Chloe? Is that you? He whispered, almost as if he doubted his eyes. Chloe nodded, though there was still a sad smile on her face. "It's me. Long time no see, Leon," she joked britly. Leon looked frozen for a moment before he took a step forward. I could tell Rimuru wanted to intervene, but he trusted Chloe. And if the worst came, she could also defend herself for long enough for everyone to dogpile on Leon. His arm spread and slowly wrapped around Chloe as he pulled her into a hug. From my angle, I could see Leon's facial features pretty well, although he was completely ignoring me. He looked relieved, so relieved, but he also looked rather heartbroken. "You've grown," he mumbled. "I have," Chloe responded simply, though I could tell she was hiding a lot of her current feelings. Slowly, Leon took a few steps back. He looked Chloe up and down as his fists clenched. "It was worth it. I found you," he whispered, though all of us could hear Leon. "It's nice to see you again, Leon," Chloe said as her smile grew a little more happy. Leon went on to convey just how glad he was that she was alive. He and Chloe chatted for a few moments while Rimuru and I were just standing by. Rimuru was paying attention to them, but I lost interest almost immediately. I was just sticking around to make sure things went alright. I planned to leave if things looked fine here, but I'd observe for a little while longer first. I raised my palm and started to play around with some magic. Storms of lightning formed in the palm of my hand, superheating the surrounding air due to the lightning's temperature. Everyone was able to ignore the sudden apoplectic strike in temperature, though, as the lightning storms weren't at the ultimate level. I did get a few glances thrown at me by everyone here, but Leon and Chloe were mostly content to ignore me. After a couple of minutes, Leon and Chloe wrapped up their initial conversation. "I've been trying to find you for so long, Chloe. I've unleashed things upon this world that can never be taken back, but it was all worth it now that I see you here, safe and sound." "Was he a yen dear? Please, come with me. I can keep you safe in El Dorado. You won't need to worry about anything, I promise. If there is anything your heart desires, I will obtain it just for you," Leon said. A sad smile formed on Chloe's lips as she stared Leon dead in the eye. Rimuru didn't say anything, content to let Chloe make her own choices. Chloe slowly shook her head. "No. I want to stay with Rimuru." Leon stood there, frozen in shock, before he looked at Rimuru with a dead gaze. "What did you do to Chloe?" Now, it was Rimuru's turn to look confused. "What? I didn't do anything." Chloe nodded along, her mood seemingly improving a bit. "That's right. I just like Rimuru, so I want to stay with him. I know you are worried about me, but I am not the same scared kid I used to be. I'm strong now, and I don't need you to protect me." "You like Rimuru?" Leon mumbled heartbrokenly, practically ignoring the rest of what she had said. "All right, I have a feeling I'm not needed. I showed up just in case someone was coming to cause trouble. I don't want to watch this train wreck waiting to happen. Yanders can be scary if untamed. Rimuru can handle this on his own? Probably. Since it seems a fight won't be breaking out, I think I'll be leaving." I spoke up. Rimuru looked at me and nodded. "All right, thanks for showing up, Felix." I nodded, but before I could leave, Chloe interrupted me with a thought communication. I blinked as neither Rimuru nor Leon seemed to sense anything out of the ordinary. Manas really were bullshit. At least I could only assume that Granoa was responsible for the thought communication remaining undetected. "Felix, do you have a moment?" Chloe asked. The conversation would take place in a literal nanosecond. I had a nanosecond to spare. I looked at her curiously. I still didn't really trust Chloe all that much. She's been around for a long, long time, more than long enough for a person to change. But she hasn't really given me a reason to be suspicious of her, so I'd give her the benefit of the doubt, but nothing else. "Sure, Chloe, what's up?" "Granoa is requesting we spar sometime whenever you have a chance," Chloe stated. "Why would she want to spar?" "I have a lot of power at my disposal, but neither she nor I know how to properly wield it. She had said that you are powerful enough to survive a serious sparring session in which we can go all out and train our powers," Chloe said with confidence. "Ah, so she wants to use me as a practice dummy? Well, she has another thing coming if she thinks she's going to have an easy time with me. But a spar like that would be fun and useful. I can scope out some more of Chloe and Granoa's capabilities that way. Still, the fact that Chloe is having trouble controlling her power with Imanas is pretty weird. As I said earlier, Granoa is not Imanas born from a skill, but from negative emotions. It is due to this that she lacks many of the capabilities I am intrinsically capable of. Yeah, I know, Othinus, it's just weird imagining a powerful being like Imanas struggling with something like that. That might not be fair of me to think since even I struggle to control my power, but Othinus has set the bar pretty high for what I expect from Imanas. I am simply superior. No need to be so smug. Humphrey. I focused back on Chloe. "Sure, I don't mind. I think I'm pretty free for a while, so perhaps we can spar whenever we get the chance. I'm going to be having a lot of spars soon. I just had one with Hinata, then I want to have one with Milim, and now with Chloe and Krinoa. It sounds fun. Very well, thanks Felix. See ya, I said with a final wave as I extended my demonic wings behind me, flying deeper into Tempest. I'll head back to Azeroth soon enough, but I wanted to grab a quick bite to eat. Siko had not been having a very fun last few days. Her days were filled with pain and exhaustion ever since Felix-sama had left her and his other direct subordinates had begun training. Everyone was eager to become stronger to be more useful to Felix-sama. She had been training against Megaman primarily, though Carrion was also present, and Ingvild joined in with Glinda following soon after Ingvild. Arcuaid and Lalitina were training with each other. Raiden trained with Midrayi and Kurimi, while Sukuna had been rotating training groups, but he primarily stuck with Arcuaid and Lalitina, though he always got slapped around. However, Sukuna still continued to attempt to join Arcuaid and Lalitina in their spars, which seemed to have won him their approval, so they began giving him some advice, and eventually, Arcuaid ordered Moss to be his training partner. Moss may not have been a primordial, but he was the strongest in the demon realm under the primordials once upon a time. He would still retain that title if it weren't for Felix-sama, so Moss was no weakling. His combat experience alone made him monstrous. In fact, Moss was stronger than over half of the 8 demonic lords despite not being one of them himself. He was simply that powerful, even if his persona did not match that. Everyone was eager to grow stronger, and Siko couldn't be more happy. Even through all the pain, she knew each hour brought her closer and closer to becoming someone Felix-sama could count on. All of them had grown stronger from the training they had done, but everyone also knew that it wasn't enough. They all agreed to continue to train with slightly less intensity after Felix-sama returned. They likely wouldn't have as many opportunities to train since they would be fulfilling Felix-sama's orders, so they would have to make do with the time they had. Felix-sama should be back soon, so Siko wished to prepare an extravagant meal for him. Raiden agreed on the condition that she would be supervising. She wasn't quite certain why Raiden felt the need to supervise her. Perhaps Raiden wanted to steal her recipes? If so, Raiden did not need to go through all that effort. Siko was willing to share them freely. She was a generous woman. Now, she was visiting some of her self-proclaimed subordinates. They couldn't be the only ones training and growing stronger, so Siko ordered them to begin improving themselves as well. She quickly arrived at the training grounds that Arcuaid had assigned to her group. She crossed her hands under her generous bust and marched forward. There were a variety of races in the Purple Guards. 1,500 different Majin were training in front of her. The majority of them were Kaijin, but some other Majin also decided to join in for whatever reason. Each of them seemed to be very loyal to her, so Siko didn't question it. Lalitina had double-checked to make sure there were no spies within, and Siko trusted Lalitina's ability. There was a reason Felix-sama had put her in charge of the intelligence department. Lady Siko has arrived, announced the eldest of Dagrul's children, Dagura. Everyone stopped what they were doing and saluted her. She nodded in satisfaction. Good. I see you have all been hard at work. She smiled happily. Yes, ma'am, responded Rura, Dagrul's second son. She withdrew some bottles from her spatial storage. Make sure you all try some of this. It will increase your poison resistance. All 1,500 of the Purple Guards collectively shivered hearing her for some reason. She wanted to make sure the Purple Guards were useful to Felix-sama, so she made sure they were resistant to as many things as possible: poison, sleep magic, paralysis, and a variety of other status effects. Of course they had all agreed to this ahead of time and could leave at any time. She wouldn't force her training methods on anyone as she was self-aware enough to realize they were fairly abnormal. They did get results though. It was thanks to her efforts that the Purple Guards had gained the extra skill, self-regeneration. Some of the Kaijin in the Purple Guards, approximately 100 or so, were those who had died on the night of the Famuth invasion, and to assist in their resurrection that had gained the extra skill, perfect memory, which in combination with self-regeneration made them extremely hard to permanently kill. Very well, Lady Siko, responded Deborah, the final son of Dagrul. She nodded. Good, I will be coming to check on you routinely. I can't have you making me look bad in front of Felix-sama. Once they all got back to work, she left. Hopefully, they will all be useful to Felix-sama. I snapped my fingers, teleporting myself to my office in my palace, bypassing the space lock placed on the capital of my territory completely. I quickly glanced around before heading towards where I sensed Siko. Oddly enough, the others weren't in my palace. I spread my senses out further. I shook my head, a fond smile on my face. I could sense them all in the training dimension going at it. It seems everyone is looking for a power-up these days. It didn't take long for Siko and me to cross paths. Her eyes immediately widened upon spotting me. "Felix-sama. You are finally back," Siko said with some eagerness in her voice. I nodded. "Yeah, I'm back for now. I'm going to head back to Tempest sometime tomorrow, but I won't be there for long. I do want to see what kind of effects evolving into a divine human has on Hinata." Siko nodded. "Understood. So you've all been training then? I can sense your energy has increased a little bit. It's only been a few days, so the effects of training aren't that apparent yet." Siko's EP only increased by around 10,000. But then again, maybe my perspective is warped. 10,000 DP is the average for a Greater Magin, after all, and a single Greater Magin is a threat that is classified above A rank. Greater Magins are even worshipped as local deities in some remote regions, and I have thousands under my retinue. Siko nodded to my question. "We all began training more intensely once you had left Azeroth in our care. We made sure our duties were complete beforehand, though." I nodded. "Great, the stronger you get, the safer you'll be." What I left unspoken was that the stronger they'll be, the sooner I can give them the power up and evolve them. Though I was content to wait for as long as needed. They were all pretty strong already. I wasn't going to rush things and put them in undue danger because I got impatient. They'll be ready when they need to be. Siko firmly nodded. "Yes. Out of curiosity, who's training with who?" Siko tilted her head. "Megaman, Ingvald, Glenda, and I were training together. Arcuade and Lalitina were training together. Sukuna was mostly with Moss, while Kurumi rotated around groups. Then Raiden was with Midrayi." I raised a brow. "Oh? Midrayi was here? I didn't sense that beast of a man here, so he must have left already." Siko nodded. Raiden had requested his assistance in growing stronger since Midrayi had offered to train her in the past. Lady Milam saw no issue and sent him over, but he had left earlier. I nodded. "I see. Now, I need to speak to Arcuade and Megaman. I'll catch you later, Siko." Siko nodded. "I will resume my secretarial duties then, Felix-sama." Her secretarial duties. I don't recall giving Siko any actual duties other than occasionally asking her to do some tasks for me. What exactly could her secretarial duties be? Her under-the-desk duties? Hey. I shook my head. It's none of my business. It shouldn't be anything bothersome for me, probably, hopefully. I went back to my personal office before sending Arcuade and Megaman a thought communication. "Can you two come see me? I'm in my office." "Ah. You have returned, my lord. Hearing your voice makes my heart beat in relief." Arcuade exclaimed. "My lord. Did you require my services? Will we be blowing things up?" Megaman asked excitedly. I sighed in fondness. "It's nice to hear from you as well, Arcuade, and as for you, Megaman, we'll probably be blowing stuff up in the future. It's part of why I want to talk to you too." Hee hee. "Yeah, I'll come over immediately, my lord," Megaman said with enthusiasm. "Very well, my lord, I am currently with Lalitina. I shall come to your location immediately," responded Arcuade. "You're with Lalitina, you say? Bring her with you too, then. Lalitina is the head of my intelligence department. I should tell her about what's going to happen in the future too." "Very well, my lord, Lalitina seems quite excited to see you." "Of course she is. Anyways, I'll see you soon." Once that was done, I sat back in my chair and admired the lifelike paintings on my walls while I waited. Not even a moment later, I heard a knock on the door. "Come in," I called out. The door opened, and in came Arcuade, followed by Megaman and Lalitina. All three of them immediately kneeled upon seeing me. "My lord. My lord. Master." I sighed. "It's nice to see you three in person, but get up. These three can really be a bit too subservient. I guess it's just in their nature as demons. Demons are very obsessive about fulfilling the contracts they make, and becoming my subordinate can be considered a contract of sorts." All three of them stood up immediately. I snapped my fingers, creating 3 seats with Brahma. I decided to be a bit fancy and made the seats out of magisteel. Practically all kingdoms would cry at seeing such a precious resource wasted. The 3 didn't even bat their eyes at the sudden appearance of the magisteel seats. I could sense that each of their energy reserves had also increased a little bit. Arcuade gained approximately 17,000 DP, Lalitina gained about 16,000 DP, and Megaman gained around 11,000 DP, which makes sense since she was sparring with Siko, Carrion, Glenda, and Ingvald, beings weaker than her, whereas Arcuade and Lalitina were sparring with each other. Once they were all sat down, I began speaking. "I called you 3 here to inform you of something that has a very high chance of occurring in the future." All 3 of them sat up straight, sensing that this was serious. In the future, the Eastern Empire will likely invade Tempest, and they may invade Azeroth too. Arcuaid's smile widened. Those fools again? It seems the lesson I taught them last time was not enough. I was well aware of the Lakeshore Dyed Scarlet incident. Arcuaid had it out for the Eastern Empire. Megaman was also smiling. Hee, the Eastern Empire? That sounds fun. I'm sure she's imagining blowing shit up. That girl loves her nuclear magic way too much. Though I can see why she enjoys nuclear magic, causing massive explosions is pretty cool. Lalatina looked far less bloodthirsty and more focused. She may be the most degenerate out of the three, but she was also very focused on her job and had no personal stake in the Eastern Empire. The Eastern Empire? I've heard they have some strong people, hopefully they can serve as good entertainment. Maybe after killing them, Master will praise me? Lalatina mumbled. Never mind. Seeing as I expect the Eastern Empire to invade at some point, I want you to send some reinforcements to Supia. Supia was stationed at the outpost right next to the single pathway that connected the Eastern Empire to Azeroth. As you wish, my lord. Arcuaid said while looking at Megaman. Megaman looked thoughtful for a moment before nodding. I can send some of the more talented troops there. They have made a bit more progress than the rest of the bunch, so they should be ready. I nodded. Good. I turned to Lalatina, who was still in her own head. Lalatina. I called out. Lalatina's eyes snapped to awareness. Ah. I apologize for getting distracted, Master. Feel free to punish me. I sighed. Maybe later. A punishment might as well be a reward for that girl, though it will probably be pretty enjoyable to test out Lover on Lalatina. I want you to try and gather as much information as possible, send some spies into the Eastern Empire, but be careful and make sure the spies don't have any knowledge of the inner workings of Azeroth. Lalatina was a surprisingly competent spy master. She had divisions of spies under her, a branch of them were those she picked up off the street. They were led to believe that they had been recruited by another kingdom and then trained to the point that they were sufficient spies. Lalatina would use these spies when she thought the probability of them getting caught was high, as they would have no useful information to give. Lalatina nodded. As you wish, Master. Hopefully, Lalatina can pick up some useful information. Chloe wasn't aware of the inner workings of the Eastern Empire more than I already was. The Eastern Empire, by nature, is a conquering empire. Their desire for expansion is well known by the world. The Eastern Empire has many vassal states that used to be independent kingdoms of their own before being conquered and relegated to mere vassal states. Along with that, the Eastern Empire is tyrannical. They would demand the surrender of the kingdom they were invading, and if the kingdom refused, they would crush it beneath their feet. No amount of pleading or discussions would change that. If one rejects the East's initial offer for surrender, they are destroyed. No sole human kingdom is capable of handling the sheer might the Eastern Empire commands. They have a powerful army, and seem to have made some progress into Magi tech. Good, that was all I wanted to talk to you three about together, but I do have something else for you three. You could consider it a present. Ah. Another present from my master? Lalation mumbled as she giggled lewdly. I rolled my eyes and ignored her. A while ago, I gave you all god-grade equipment I created with material creation. How has the equipment been suiting you? Arcuaid held her palm out, summoning the whip I had created for her. It has suited me wonderfully. When I wield it, it feels like an extension of my being. The katana you made for me is great. Megaman added. Lalatina was still in La La Land. I nodded. Good, well, I crafted those with material creation, so they are intrinsically weaker than god-grade equipment that has been forged by a blacksmith and evolved to that level. Now I can make you three more powerful god-grade equipment that, at the very least, won't be outshone by a naturally evolved god-grade weapon. Megaman's eyes lit up. New weapons, huh? A stronger and more durable weapon would be fun to use when I'm chopping up the Eastern Empire. Megaman said with a bloodthirsty smile. Our current weapons are more than sufficient, my lord. However, if you feel that I will be of more use to you with a more powerful weapon, then who am I to question your wisdom? Arcuaid said diplomatically. Lalatina also seemed to have come back to reality. Any present from you I will cherish with my entire being, Master. A present I can use to claim souls in your name is almost as good as the collar you got me. Lalatina said as she touched the collar on her neck. Seeing Lalatina's action, both Megaman and Arcuaid looked at Lalatina weirdly. I suppose all of us have our eccentricities. Arcuaid mumbled. Alright, so do you all want the same weapons I gave you before? Arcuaid nodded. A whip that can channel my white freezing flame is more than sufficient for me, my lord. Lalatina also nodded. I've been enjoying using the pistol that you gave me, but I would prefer dual blades as my primary weapons master. I would also like a katana, but for my offhand, I'd like a pistol to wield in it. Megaman asked. I nodded. Sure, I can do that. But since when have you liked to use handguns? I asked curiously. I gave Lalatina a handgun that she has been having fun with, but that's because she's my spy. What kind of spy doesn't have a badass pistol with which to assassinate people? I had used Glenda's before, and it was enjoyable enough for me. I can combine it with the swordsmanship I'm learning from Adra fairly easily as well. Megaman answered with a shrug. I see, that's fine then. I smiled as the perfect pistol came to mind. I held my palm out and called on the power of Brahma, Lord of Creation. I created a brand new whip for Arcuaid, basing it on the old one I gave her. I added a bit more cosmetic design to this whip. The handle was pitch black and had intricate engravings scorched onto it. Runes etched onto the surface meant to increase the power of the magicules channeled through it. The designs were inlaid with fine gold and silver filigree, adding an ethereal glow to the dark surface. The entire whip was made out of high hurricane, also known as divine steel. Overall I think this suited Arcuaid, and going by her gaze, I think she liked it. I handed Arcuaid the handle, which she took with no small amount of reverence. The gaze she sent me caused me to shiver. The sheer obsessiveness, desire, and even love were noticeable. That woman was intense. Next for Lalatina, dual blades. Two beautiful short swords appeared floating in front of us. The design was similar to Arcuaid's whip, with black handles and designs engraved into the hilt and blade, as well as runes to assist in channeling magicules. This was also made of high hurricane. Lalatina reached out and gently grabbed the two hilts. A gift from Master. I rolled my eyes. No matter how hot she was and how hot her total masochist slave thing was, I must remain strong. No lewd thoughts right now. I shook my head and looked towards Megaman, who looked eager for her weapons. I created a katana out of high hurricane, which was floating in front of her, same deal as before, with a black hilt and designs engraved on it. The gun was what I was excited to make. Megaman grabbed the katana out of the air in an instant, causing a gust of wind to be released from the sheer speed of her grabbing motion. That gust of wind would have toppled over my wine shelf if I hadn't stopped that from happening. Arcuaid frowned at Megaman. Be careful, Megaman. You have almost damaged our Lord's precious wares. Megaman looked up at me apologetically. Ah, sorry about that. I'm just excited to try out my new weapons. I bet Adra will be jealous. She giggled. I waved her off. It's fine, no harm done. I closed my eyes, activating thought acceleration as I pictured the pistol in my mind, adjusting and refining the details to create a weapon that was both aesthetically pleasing and capable of channeling magicules. The more I changed and created, the more excited I got. Who knew creating original weapons with this much detail could be enjoyable? Once I was satisfied with the design, I began materializing it in the real world. The hilt came first. The entire thing was made from high hurricane, but the thing about high hurricane was that it could take on the texture of any other material, so I had some creative liberty with it. The hilt looked as if it was made from a blackened alloy. It had an intricate lattice of runic symbols etched into its surface, each symbol designed to optimize the flow of magicules. The grip was wrapped in smooth, dark leather, providing a firm but comfortable hold. Next, the frame of the pistol formed. Sleek and elegant, the metallic surface gleamed with a deep, obsidian sheen. It was adorned with subtle, silver filigree. The trigger guard was slightly larger than usual, allowing for a more precise and controlled pull, essential for channeling magicules through the weapon. The barrel extended gracefully, longer than a typical Beretta's, to accommodate the magical conduits within. The rifling inside was meticulously designed to spin not just bullets but also concentrated blasts of magicules with deadly accuracy. Along the top of the barrel, a thin line of runes glowed faintly, each one a key component in the weapon's magical amplification system that increased the magic power of the bullets further. Finally, the slide and sights took shape. The slide was engraved with elegant scrollwork, and a pair of finely tuned, adjustable iron sights sat atop it, glowing faintly with enchantments that allowed for perfect aim even in low light conditions, not that Megaman even needed that. The muzzle was subtly flared, ensuring a seamless transition for both physical bullets and magical projectiles. Now this was a true masterpiece that I was proud of creating. Though in function, it was no less than any of the other weapons I had just created. I simply put a bit more cosmetic detail into this. It was modeled after a Beretta 92's, a classic pistol that has a history of being used in wars back on Earth. Whoa! I heard Megaman exclaim. That looks awesome. Arcuaid nodded. Indeed, it is a fine instrument of death. I do prefer my whip, but such a weapon would be more than suitable for any. Arcuaid then shifted her gaze from the weapon to me. Truly masterful work, my lord, as expected of your greatness. She said with obsession and love clouding her eyes. I shivered slightly at that look once again. Damn, that was hot. Ooh. What a wonderful present, master. I'm sure Megaman will slay many in your name with it. Lalatina laughed. Megaman nodded as she gazed at me with a different look than she usually did. "Thank you for this gift, my lord, I will use it well," she said as I floated the pistol towards her. She gently placed her hand over the grip and began looking at it from all angles. "I'm glad you liked it. I had fun making it. It was capable of channeling magical bullets that could easily destroy entire mountain ranges, as well as more material bullets that Megaman could create with material creation should she desire to do so. Each of the weapons I had created today had DPs well over 1,500,000, and they would continue to grow alongside their users. I could create more powerful weapons, but at a certain point they will become a bit unstable due to the amount of energy contained within without properly growing over time. Shoving a bunch of energy into something will cause it to become unstable at a certain point. Hee, I can't wait to bust some heads with this," Megaman mumbled. "You guys can go and try out your new weapons now if you want. That's all I wanted to give you today." Megaman, Lalatina, and Arcuaid nodded. "Though Arcuaid, I want you to stay for a few minutes." Arcuaid nodded. "As you wish." Lalatina was looking at Arcuaid with jealousy, to which I rolled my eyes at. She probably thought we were going to have sex, which we weren't this time. Arcuaid was a total hottie, but I had some serious things I needed to get done to prepare for the Eastern Empire's invasion, and pleasure could come later. Lalatina sent me a seductive look, but seeing that I didn't respond to her teasing, she pouted at me before leaving. That girl was way too horny, especially for a being that could control her horniness. She's just a degenerate down to the soul. Maybe I should take her out sometime. Perhaps that will calm down her degeneracy. Nothing like some wholesome hand-holding. But that's for later. Lalatina and Megaman quickly left the room, leaving only Arcuaid and me. "Did you want something to drink?" I asked as I gestured to the wine cabinet in the corner of the room. Arcuaid shook her head. "No, thank you, my lord." I nodded. "All right then. The reason I wanted to speak to you is that I have it under good authority that Dagrul may become an enemy at some point in the future. Keep in mind that this is a mere possibility, not a fact," I emphasized. I was sharing this with Arcuaid since she was in charge of my kingdom as a whole. It was best if she began making preparations ahead of time. Arcuaid raised an eyebrow. "The Titan? He is a powerful foe to face, but I believe that you would come out on top in a battle." I shrugged my shoulders. "Perhaps, but the goal is to not have to fight in the first place." Arcuaid nodded. "That is admirable of you, my lord, but sometimes you may not have a choice but to show your enemies the foolishness of challenging you. I'm not denying that. However, in this case, we can actually hopefully make sure Dagrul is not an enemy, and perhaps even an ally. It may just have been me, but personally, I didn't want to face a 40 million EP giant that was once the counterforce of this world. No matter how strong I am, underestimating these beings who have been around for a really damn long time is just idiotic. Who knows what they could have picked up over the years. I will make sure you are not caught off guard, master." "Thanks, Othinus, I'll be counting on you then." "I see. If you believe it is possible to turn a piece of the Mad Titan into an ally, then I shall assist you with all my power." "Huh, so even Arcuaid knows about Dagrul's identity as a fragment of the Mad Titan?" "Well, she is super old, so that isn't too surprising." "Good, I'll be needing your help in this since politics isn't my area of expertise." Arcuaid nodded. "Of course. From what I understand, one of the reasons Dagrul may become an enemy in the future is due to his lands. Due to the fight between Milim and Guy that took place over that land, the land itself has lost its fertility. Thanks to this, his people are barely surviving since most of them need sustenance to function and survive." Arcuaid nodded. "I can see the problem in that. The fact that they have managed to survive for so long is only a testament to Dagrul's abilities then. Yeah, he seems to care for his people a great deal. That was something I could admire about him. From the tales I heard, the Mad Titan was exactly that, mad. He caused destruction and death with every footstep and sought to put the entire world under his thumb. It's quite odd how Dagrul is so different from his complete self. I guess change is possible even for immortal beings. My idea was to use our vast spatial capabilities to assist them. We have farms all around my territory producing more than enough food and other resources thanks to you, Arcuaid. We had resources in excess, but the none went to waste since we could store it and preserve its current state so it never went bad. I could easily make a magic circle that allows for mass transportation of both people and goods, one that was powered by absorbing the magicules in the environment itself, so it is basically self-sufficient." Arcuaid nodded. "Indeed, I had ordered for the creation of more farms in order to stockpile food and other rations in the case that we need them. But they can also be used to assist Dagrul, I suppose." I nodded. "Right, of course, we won't be doing any of this for free. We are a kingdom, after all. Just come up with a deal that you feel is beneficial for us. Arcuaid looked thoughtful for a moment before nodding. Very well, if you give me some time I can come up with the basis of a contract that can further be modified during negotiations. I nodded. That's fine, I'll get into contact with Drumroll so we can arrange somewhere for you or someone you appoint to negotiate. Arcuaid nodded. Understood. I will begin working on a contract immediately. Since Drumroll does not have many natural resources to trade, he will need to offer something else of value. I nodded. That's right, I'm fine with anything really as long as we aren't at a loss. Even ancient artifacts are fine with me. Arcuaid nodded. I will keep that in mind. I will try to lean more towards items that will be useful to the development of this territory. I smiled. Thanks. I know I've given you a lot of work, but I appreciate you looking out for this territory for me. This entire ruling thing was an unwanted burden I got since I offed Daemon, but I wasn't going to let the many innocent people here get killed or subordinated by the Eastern Empire, which was very likely if no one took the reins of this territory. Arcuaid smiled. It is my honor and duty to serve at your whims, my lord. Haha, you demons sure are a loyal bunch. Anyways, that was all I wished to speak to you about. Arcuaid nodded. You are not in need of my other services? She asked as a blush crept up on her face. The image of Arcuaid's curvy, lewd, and seductive nude body appeared in my mind before I focused. Not this time. I still have some more people to see. I would not give in. Arcuaid gained control over her blush and nodded. Very well, my lord, should you require my services, I am but a call away. I nodded, and with that, Arcuaid stood up and left. Now, to go see Sasha. Grandel leaned back on his throne as he waited for his trusted friend to arrive. Soon enough, he heard a knock on the door. Come in. The door opened, and in came his longtime friend. His entire body was clad in a jet-black exoskeleton that made Drumroll almost unbeatable. Even he would likely fail to defeat his friend as he was now. But that was for the best since he knew should he ever die, his friend would be strong enough to protect humanity even without him. Grandel. Nodded Drumroll. He nodded back at him. Thank you for coming so far to see me. The border is quite far. It was no problem, Grandel. That's the least I owe you. He had met Drumroll long ago. Back when Drumroll was just a juvenile. He was just a large beetle at the time, yet whether it was fate or not, he decided to help him. He bestowed the name Drumroll upon him, forever binding him to Grandel's side. Ever since then Drumroll had been a valued friend of his. Fighting through countless enemies next to him to protect humanity. Haha, you don't owe me anything, my friend. He gestured to the seat across from him. Come, take a seat and drink. Grandel said as he served Drumroll some wine. Drumroll nodded and took the glass before sitting down. The demons of Guy Crimson have calmed down with their games. I'm not quite sure why, but that is the only reason I could afford to come and see you without the main continent being overrun by demons. Drumroll was the guardian of the West, the sole being responsible for fighting off Guy Crimson's legion of demons single-handedly. Grandel nodded. That's good then. Now the reason I called you here is due to needing your assistance with a plan of mine. Without Drumroll's might, the plan had a far less likely chance to succeed. It was still possible, but it would be far more difficult. Drumroll was stronger than some of the demon lords, after all. What did you need from me? He leaned forward. I will be attacking Ruberius with the assistance of some temporary allies of mine. Drumroll looked interested. You are finally ready to challenge Demon Lord Valentine? He asked. Perhaps, but that is not the goal. No, the goal is one of her treasures. Once I have that, my goal will be complete. Drumroll nodded. Very well, you will have my assistance. Drumroll said, backing him up without question. Grandel smiled. Thank you, my friend. We still have some preparations to make, but I will call you when the time is right. Drumroll nodded. Now that the important discussion was finished, they simply talked and caught up. It was nice to catch up with one's friends after so long. Chapter 144, Date in the Kingdom of Raja Part 1. Rimuru sighed as he sat back in his comfy chair. He and Chloe had finally convinced Leon to calm down a bit and listen to what they had to say. It was pretty obvious to him now that Leon and Chloe had some sort of past together, and according to Chloe, they were childhood friends who were separated when they were brought to this world. Leon appeared in the past, while Chloe appeared in the future due to a confusing series of events. Time shenanigans or something like that. Though with Chloe being stuck in a time loop, maybe that was to be expected. After hearing Chloe's story, Leon was just blankly staring ahead. So you appeared in the future, Chloe? Chloe nodded. I did. I appeared as a child and was a student under Shizu-sensei and then Rimuru. Hearing his name, Leon glared at him once again, something he was beginning to get tired of. Would you stop glaring at me? None of this is my fault, you know. Leon scoffed before looking away. Dick. And due to a skill of yours, you were trapped in a time loop for who knows how long? Leon grit out. Chloe nodded. That's right, thanks to Rimuru, Hinata, and Felix it was possible to break the time loop. Why are you calling Felix that? I'm supposed to be the only one you call like that. Leon said in a petulant tone of voice. With each moment that passed his impression of Leon was blown further and further to smithereens. Chloe shook her head. No. Felix is Felix, you're just Leon. Ouch. Even Rimuru couldn't help but wince as he saw Leon receive such a brutal psychological attack. An aura of depression radiated around Leon after hearing Chloe. Though perhaps he deserved it. She's really brutal, and going by the look on her face, she didn't even realize it. He really didn't want Leon to go berserk here. He knew Leon had an ultimate skill, and he wasn't about to take an ultimate awakened casually. Raphael-sensei, you have my back, right? Affirmative. At least Raphael was on his side. Leon sighed. Fine. And then Krinoa is this alter ego of yours that went on a rampage whenever you were sent to the past? Chloe nodded. That's right. And someone managed to beat her when she went on a rampage? Asked Leon. I see, from what I sensed from Krinoa when she briefly appeared earlier, she is very powerful. Perhaps only Guy could defeat her. Leon muttered. Guy, as in Guy Crimson? Leon nodded to him. That's right. I had fought Guy once in the past, and he was able to make quick work of me though I had not been using my ultimate skill much due to its nature. Rimuru sighed. I see, Felix said Guy was strong, so that makes sense. Sheesh, and Felix spars with that guy? Leon's head snapped to him. What did you say? That Felix said Guy was strong? After that. Leon demanded. That Felix spars with Guy? He said in confusion. That's right. Demon Lord Felix managed to spar with Guy and survive? Even when I had a casual spar with Guy, I had to fight for my life. Leon said as he banged his fist against the table. He even used my own skill against me. That sounds like a skill issue. Rimuru whispered. Of course, he would taunt Leon. He already had a pretty horrible impression of the man, and his actions just made it worse. Leon glared at him. What? Nothing. It's nothing. Would you two please stop fighting? Chloe asked. Leon crossed his arms and snorted. We're not fighting. Rimuru nodded. That's right, totally not fighting. Just a simple chat between co-workers. Fellow demon lords? Chloe sighed. Ugh, fine, just stop whatever it is that you're doing. Leon nodded. It's one thing to hold off Milim Nava and a whole different thing to hold off Guy Crimson. He shrugged his shoulders. I don't know what to tell you then. Felix said he had sparred with Guy. He's probably just stronger than you. Leon clenched his fists but nodded. Perhaps. He then sighed. At least the odds of Guy going after Chloe are much lower now,